Lisa's gonna be late today.
Okay.
She's right here.
Oh, yes.
We're escaping so today's the day Mike is going to announce your options for the international seminar. So I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. I know he has a methodology to how he wants to release that information to you. But what I do want to talk about is a little bit about the process. So we need to start thinking about passports. If you don't have your passport, please start doing the paperwork and sending in everything you need to get your passport. If you do have a passport,
should wait a few days because the government shut down. Shutting down passport. That's scary.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that. If you can apply for a passport, please apply for a passport.
Our CEO is supposed to go to LA on Monday because
that's why things like this we start talking about in January, even though we're leaving in November. If you do have a passport, please check it and make sure it has two things. Number one, that it expires in May or June of next year. So if it expires in November or December of this year, they will not let you on the plane. Or we could get on the plane and they won't let you back. So please make sure it expires next year. And also make sure it has at least 2 blank pages. Or if you plan on traveling this year internationally, make sure you've got more than 2 blank pages. Again, if we don't have 2 blank pages, they won't let you on the plane or they may not let you back. So those are things that we need to think about now to make sure we have no issues later. There will come a time this summer when we'll be asking for your passports just so we can make a copy of them and then we'll give them right back to you. We don't want to be responsible for them. I don't think any of the locations that we've asked that we're going to give you require visas. So again, we won't have to hold on.
And I'm going to ask, instead of this summer, if you can start bringing them in. If you have them, bring them in as soon as possible. That way I know who to stalk. So that would be very helpful if you can bring them in.
Perfect.
Can we just scan your copy or do you need the actual original?
If you scan me a copy, make sure you're the one checking to make sure you have those empty pages. That would be fine also. Yeah.
So, in addition to that, now that you're going to know your location, then Mike, I think, has told you the process. Groups of you will get to make presentations in 2 weeks, and then we'll open up a survey, and you guys will get to vote. And I don't know if you've heard from your peers in other classes, but we like to do a halfway there party. So that will be, what is the date of the halfway there party?
The 16th, that Friday, your last class with Mike.
Let me double check the calendar. It is the 16th.
February 16th.
So February 16th is your last day with Mike. It's a Friday. It's your birthday, honey. We're going to celebrate your birthday. Yay! So our plan is to have the halfway there party for you guys that night. So please check your schedule. Make sure that you can join us. And at the halfway there party, we will announce where you're going. So it'll be fun. It's many reasons to celebrate. And then are we going to tell them about that yet, or are we going to hold off? Okay, Chris has got a plan. So just keep in mind, February 16th, halfway there party that night. And then
that's just us. That's not us.
Just us, yeah, just us. And then just to answer some questions about the process, Eric had already asked. Once you guys decide where you're going, I get to start this wonderful bureaucratic process here in the university, going through our accounts payable department, purchasing, putting the entire trip out for a bid. There's an RFP process. I have to write a big scope. It's an arduous process. So getting through that will take a few months. And you won't hear much from us about the trip until we get through that process. We know who our travel vendor is. I have a vendor I prefer to use, and we have been very fortunate that they've been our vendor for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm confident we'll get to use them again, but I still have to go through this process as a state institution. So when you're not hearing from us, it doesn't mean that we're not working on your trip. It's just there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has to happen before we can start talking about business visits and hotels and cultural activities. But those are all things that we'll be working on, and then we will start sharing with you as soon as everything's dialed in, and we'll keep you posted. But that's kind of the process once you all decide where you want to go. Do you want to say anything? You want to say anything?
I will admit, yeah. Start talking about the trip, right?
That's all I got.
Okay, let's do it.
Anyone questions for me? Wait, hold on.
Is when you find out who your partner is, that's when you find out like who we're flying with and all that kind of stuff. And, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all part of one package.
Yeah. So we won't know any of that for a while, but we'll share as soon as we can. Now,
But that's what it is.
Are you guys ready? So
Ready.
what I'm gonna do, we have 4 possible places to go, right? And each place has 2 locales, right? So they're kind of teamed up. I drew, the first place we'll look at today is our Asia option, right? And I drew a picture of our primary place that we're going. Singapore. See, it's an accurate picture, very good picture, right? So
look at you.
Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. I've been to both these places. Have you been to Singapore? Okay, Singapore, big modern city, easy to get around, very clean. If you spit your gum on the sidewalk, you're gonna get arrested. I mean, you gotta really behave yourself. Has anyone been to Kuala Lumpur? You know, it's another big city, but it's very messy, right? Muslim population, so you get people wearing, what do they call the things over the face? And it's very interesting, right? You got, you know, these twin towers. They're not the tallest building in the world anymore, but they're maybe second. But very interesting place, nice markets because it's so different, right? But you have to be willing to accept different.
You all are.
And there's kind of give you some orientation. That's where we are. I think we're really close to the equator there.
Yeah.
Relative to Nevada, that's where we are. So you get an idea. So what we'll do in 2 weeks, you know, at the end of your lunch break, so we break for lunch at 12:30, and at 1 o'clock, we'll open it up to people presenting each location, so a little bit of information, because then you have to get ready for your vote. So if anybody feels really eager about this particular trip, right, and wants to do, you know, usually do the presentations in teams, you can team up and do a presentation on Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. Kind of just, you know, show everybody what we're doing, what we're getting ourselves into, what would be the pluses and the minuses perhaps of going to these locations. It'll be kind of an interesting trip. Any questions? Okay.
So is it like so many days in each one, or is it? That's not
We're,
too much
we're
for-
gone 10 days total on the main part of the
Yeah.
trip.
So typically what happens is we leave the day after Thanksgiving, depending on travel time. Asia will probably end up landing Saturday afternoon or evening, depending on the flights. That's my experience. So then we'll have a Sunday cultural activity, and then Monday, Tuesday. Monday will be business visits. Tuesday will be a half day, probably cultural activity. Tuesday afternoon, we'll travel, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be the second location.
And my guess would be we're probably flying through Hong Kong.
Really, I was going to say probably Tokyo or Seoul, but
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, yeah. But, yeah, okay.
you want me Greek?
Yeah, actually, you're probably going to win because you're probably flying American, like airline, right?
No, Korean.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm going to say Hong Kong.
So you're milking it, right? You're not going to tell them all the locations at once.
No. So the next location, the next location I'll tell you just before our first break. And then you guys can discuss it during the breaks, right? Vicki wanted me to tell you, she wanted to see the first location. So I did it, you know, now you guys are going to be talking about this while I'm trying to teach you something, so.
So let's be respectful of Mike, focus on finance. You guys have plenty of time during breaks and lunch, and I'm sure on your group texts and chats that you all do to talk about this. But that is the one concern I have about the way we do this. I think it's really important. It's fun to get you guys involved early, but it can be a distraction. So let's be respectful to Mike and Nadia. And I you all instant message each other on your computers. And so let's just try to keep that to a minimum and be focused on.
It's very
I
big,
was-
brother.
Yeah, and Nikki was very respectful as a student.
All right, have a great morning. We will see you at lunch.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys like my picture.
That was so accurate.
Are you telling us 2 today and 2 tomorrow, or what?
No, I'm gonna show you all 4 today.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, before you guys turn in your first case, I had some questions on that APR, EAR I wanted to talk about first.
Number 9.
Is it number 9?
Number 9.
And let me give you kind of a universal example here. To show you logically how to solve this sort of thing. Okay, let's say we have a different example. We have 8% compounded quarterly, right? So this is our nominal rate, right? What's our EAR? Okay, so what do we know? Well, we are going to, if we put in some amount of money today, let's say $100, we're going to earn 8% over the course of the year, or 2% per quarter, right? So what happens after 1 quarter, we get our 2%, with $102. We want to know how much we're going to have the next quarter. We're multiplying this times 1.02. We have $104.04. Right? The next quarter, again, we're multiplying by 1.02. We have $106.12. In that last quarter, again, we're going to multiply by 1.02. We have $108.24. So that tells us on our investment of $100, we make $8.24, right? Or in other words, we move that 100 that we started with, we end up with 8.24%. That's our EAR. Right? So I showed you a shortcut in how to do this. Present value is 100. We have 4 quarters in the year. Interest rate 8% divided by 4 per quarter. We solve the future value. Right? We're doing the same thing we're doing there, but we're doing with our calculator, right? So we know our EAR 8.24%. Right? Now the problem is, in that case I gave you one problem where I gave you the EAR, and you had to back into solving for the APR, right? So how would you do that? Well, you're doing it the same way. You're saying, okay, future value. Remember the way our engineer programmed our calculator, we put that as a negative, because when we solve that, we get a negative, right? Present value is our starting point. And we have 4 quarters in a year, and then we would solve for our I, right? And that would give us the interest rate per period, right? And if you put in these numbers, you'll get 1.99 something. You'll get, because it's rounded, right? Because it's not actually look at it right around 2%, right? That tells you that's the interest rate per period, and you just multiply that by 4 to get your APR. Does that make sense? So if I give you the EAR of 8.24%, what was the EAR I gave you in that?
3.24.
3.24. So you would have started with minus 103.24. You have 100. What was the quarterly or monthly? Quarterly. So n is 4. You solve for your I and multiply it by 4. That's how you get your nominal rate. That make sense to everybody?
Would you be so kind and share the formula? Because I couldn't find it on the book. It said,
The EAR formula?
yeah, to convert from EAR to APR.
Okay, so we have right. So, you know, there's our formula, right? So we had, what, 3.24%? Right, so we're going to add our 1 to both sides. Then we got to take each to the 1/4 power to get rid of that, right? So it's kind of messy. What is 103.24 to the 1/4 power?
It's 3.1876.
3.1876. Yeah, that's not working. I'm not sure. It's too early in the morning. That's what am I doing wrong there?
Just do 1.03 instead of 100.
Oh yeah.
And then you gotta work out like 4.
Yeah, that's okay. 1.03. One point oh three two four. All right, so we get 1.008, and again, this is rounded a little bit. 0.008, maybe it's not rounded. 1 plus, right? Then we subtract 1 from each side. And multiply each side by 4. We got 0.2. Is that right? So 3.2% will be the nominal rate. Right. All right, so that's how you do it with the formula. But it gets a little messy, but yeah. All right, questions?
have one more question.
Yeah.
On the payday loan one, the next question of 10. Solving it using that method where you have the present value, setting the present value 100 in that way. But you're able to think there, calculate the ER when I get in, like, that is different when I try to put it into the ER formula.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So, all right, so we're doing, what's our week periods?
Every 2 weeks, so 26 for 365.
Okay, this is for the, that payday loan one, right? Okay, so we had 26 weeks.
Question on that. In the example you did with the money tree, you gave us, you did 365 divided by 4.
Okay, to get how many periods, right?
26 point.
Yeah.
So that was when we had some.
Okay, so was this the problem in the case, was that every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 26, to be real accurate, what's my number, 26.1?
It's 07.
0714.
0714?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that many 2-week periods in a year. Right? And what's the interest we're paying each period? 5%. So what that tells us is if somebody borrows $100, right? And they're paying 5% every 2 weeks, and if they don't pay it back for a full year, you know, how much would they owe at the end of the year? They keep rolling it over. Right? And the thing is, that's what there's some discussion about these payday loans, because a lot of people don't pay them back when they're first due, right? So they do kind of roll them over, even after a whole year, they roll them over. So we do this for our future value. Well, how much?
Oh, I'm sorry. 356.81.
356.81, right? That tells you what are they paying. They're paying, you subtract out the 100, 256.81%. Okay, right? Okay, got that.
Then that's when I now try to walk me through the put it in the formula.
Okay. Let's put it in the formula. And so what we have now, 1 plus 5%, but we're not dividing by, right? Because it's already interest per period. So what we're doing here is making interest per period. Okay. Right?
That's what it was.
Okay. 26, it should be accurate. 0.74. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so this right here represents interest per period. It's already there. It's already there. Okay. That makes sense? All right, I'll give you a few minutes to make a couple corrections, and we'll start off with bond valuation.
1%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
By the way, have you guys had a nice 2 weeks? Relaxing?
Oh, relaxing?
Don't push it.
No.
I know. Thank you. That's fine, but you might want to email me that in case there's some kind of, mistake, and I can just part of the credit.
Not all. We're living in a new place with half our stuff.
All right, let's talk about bonds. And the bonds will be kind of interesting. We got a big bond issue coming out in Nevada next week. So the state of Nevada municipal bonds coming out to fund the Raider football stadium. I guess also the convention center. So big bond issues coming out. We'll see how it's rated. We'll see the terms. It's a general obligation bond, but the revenue, to pay the interest is coming from that. That is some kind of hotel tax. So us locals don't have to pay the price. So we'll talk about that bond when we come back in 2 weeks. That'll be kind of an interesting one. All right, so bonds, companies issue these corporate bonds. These are contracts. And I'll show you a corporate debt instrument in a little bit so you see what they actually look like. But these corporate bonds, the kind of interest they pay depends on how safe the company is, right? So companies have to get rated. And so if you're a company, you're like MGM, and you want to come up with a bond issue, you want to borrow money, right? You go to a bank and borrow money, or you go to the marketplace and borrow money. But if you want to borrow money, you need to get rated so people know how much risk there is in you being able to pay back the contract. Right? The contract is interest and then paying back the money you borrow. So different companies, the main two are Moody's and S&P. There's Fitch's. There's a couple others. Will rate companies' bonds. So if MGM wants their bond rated, they'll call up one of these companies and say, hey, can you come rate our bond? And they'll say, sure, we'll rate your bond, but you have to pay money. We talk about that, right? So there's a fee involved to get your bond rated. So a little bit of a conflict of interest because you imagine MGM is going to be upset with Moody's if they don't get the rating they expect to get. Right? So that sort of thing. But anyways, it's not 100% clear because it's a little bit nebulous in these categories, right? So AAA capacity to pay is extremely strong. AA, very strong, right? So a little bit different. They have formulas they look at to put in different categories. And it sometimes gets more fine-tuned. You can have a AA plus, which is a little better than a AA, and that sort of thing. So if you're rated AAA or AA, those are called high-grade bonds. If you're rated single A or triple B, medium-grade bonds. All four of these are the top four categories. These are all called investment quality. And this is a remnant of regulation in the 1930s. We had the stock market crash in 29. Right? So what do politicians do when there's a financial crisis? They come up with some regulation so they can get reelected because they're just saying, hey, we've done this to solve this problem. Right? So in the 30s, they came up with regulation to put limits on different things, right? So we wouldn't have another major financial crisis. And we still have them every 30, 40 years, but we kind of had two in the last 20 years. Anyways, we're kind of ahead of pace here. But anyways, they came up with regulation that said banks and their trust departments could only buy investment quality bonds. So they had to define what is investment quality, and there's a definition of the top four categories. So if there's not investment quality, there are high yield bonds or speculative bonds on the street. They get the name of junk bonds. Right? So you hear the word junk bonds, it's just that there are lower rating on bonds. And S&P ratings, we look at double B, down to double C, those are low grade bonds. And in good markets, we're in a pretty good economy right now. A lot of people still buy those kind of bonds, even though they're called junk and they pay a higher interest rate. They're probably still safe enough where people feel all right with them. In 2009, those kind of bonds weren't selling very well, right? Because people were too worried about the risk. And then very low grade bonds goes to C, and it drops right down to D. D is for default. Right? And we've seen a couple companies go into default here in Las Vegas, Caesars, right, and Station Casino. And they kind of both emerge, but in different ways. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but you get the idea. So, okay, so there's kind of the basis for bonds, right?
How often are they reassessed?
Okay, they're reassessed when, you know, they want to come up with a new issue, right? Or something, you know, significance happened to that company, right? So if you have a company that has a lot of bonds outstanding, some significant event has happened, they might get re-rated. The kind of the argument always is the credit rating agencies are always late to do that, right? So they're always a little behind the curve. And these credit rating agencies, they won't only rate corporates, they'll rate, you know, municipals, you know, government bonds, federal government bonds. When I was in the Philippines teaching, S&P went into rate the Philippine country because they were going to come out with a bond issue. And the rating was kind of low, and the newspaper were talking about how evil this American company was. Bonds, that bond rating, all that kind of stuff. You get that going on. So if you look at a bond, it's made up of two parts, the contract. One part is called a coupon payment. That's the interest payment. And typically, it's paid every 6 months. Some bonds pay monthly, some quarterly, some annually, but a large percent, probably like 97% or something, pay every 6 months. So U.S. corporate bonds are very standard. Right? So it pays interest, yearly interest, but in two pieces every 6 months. And then it will pay a maturity value, also known as the principal or par value. And again, uniform, $1,000. Right? So I got this is a trust certificate, but kind of a corporate debt certificate. And this is kind of an interesting one I found. But it's old enough where it still had the coupons on there. So in the old days, like nowadays, how does it work? Everything's electronic. You buy a bond, every 6 months, interest shows up in your account. Right? In the past, what it used to be is you get these coupons. That's why it's called a coupon payment. You got to cut out your coupon every 6 months, run down to the bank, and it goes clear through one of the Federal Reserve banks, and to get your money. Right? So, and it's just written as a contract, right? It tells you this one 7.25% per year. So you see the coupon is 3 5/8, right? Or $36.25 based on 1,000. So
every bond is $1,000 each?
Yes.
And then.
Well, that's the maturity value.
Oh, yeah, but you purchase it.
Depends on the interest rate. We'll talk about that, yeah.
And every company does that.
Yes. Yeah. No, they made them very standard. Yeah.
So the Raiders one is going to be thousands of coupons.
Well, it's a municipal and federal are different, but municipals are typically 1,000 also. And when they issue bonds, we'll look at the Raider bond when it comes out. Yeah, I suspect they're going to probably want to issue it close to par or at par, which is $1,000.
Who can buy those?
Anybody. Now, most bonds, you know, we'll talk about this when we talk about the IPO market for stocks, right? Those are usually offered to the general public. Now, usually the wealthy, the connected, have an easier time getting in there and getting more shares, right? So those usually bump up the first day. Bonds are not usually offered to the general population. They're usually placed with large institutions. So usually large funds, insurance companies buy the bulk of these corporates. So that's typical. All right, so let's look at an example. Let's say we have a 5-year corporate bond. Coupon's 10%. And when you see the word coupon with a bond, just think of contract. That's the contract rate. So that's what's in the state in the contract. It's not going to change. So that's what we're set with. The market rate of interest, how often do market rate of interest change? Every second, every day, right? They're always changing, right? Now they're changing just by little bits typically, but every day interest rates are changing, right? We're going to use that as the discount rate, right? So in our calculator, that's our I, right? That's our discount rate. Or in other words, our required rate of return. So if you buy this bond, you're buying a contract, the coupon rate's set in the contract. $1,000 you're going to get in the future, that's set in the contract. How you're going to value it depends on your discount rate, which is going to derive from the market rate of interest, right? And some guidance is given because of how it's rated by the bond rating, by the credit rating company. So in this example, simple example, coupon rate is 10%, the market rate is also 10%. So let's look what happens. In this case, if you're going to solve this with your calculator, you say, got our coupon rate, or the coupon payment will be coupon rate times $1,000. What's our coupon rate?
10%.
10%. So we have 10% times 1,000. That's $100, right? The base amount of the bond is the maturity value, right? We got our number of payments. We got 5 coupon payments, 5-year bond. There's our required rate of interest. So let's model this thing and value it.
Number of payments 5, or is it every 6 months?
Okay, so this one I said annual payments. So we'll first go kind of an example with annual payments, and then we'll relax that a little more real world. Okay. So we'll start off with annual payments. So we have a 5-year bond, annual payments of $100 each, maturity value of $1,000. What's the value of that, right? Well, if I tell you the market rate of interest, the rate required on debt in the marketplace, that we'll use our discount rate as our I. We'll say that's also 10%. Right? So if you know that, this is what we have. We already know how to solve this, right? You learned how to do this 2 weeks ago. We have those 5 $100 payments, and we have that $1,000, right? So those 5 $100 payments, that's an annuity. What kind of annuity is that? Ordinary annuity or annuity gift?
Ordinary.
Ordinary annuity, right? So to solve that, we have a payment of 100. We're in the end mode. There's 5 payments. Our discount rate's 10%. What is our present value?
1,500.
How much?
That's not right.
4,000? 4,000? No, 1,000. Oh, that's a both together, right? I'm just doing the $100 coupon.
379.08.
379.08. All right. What that tells me is that coupon, right? That interest, the 5 $100 payments you get at a 10% rate of interest, that's how much it's worth to you today, right? You're indifferent between $379.08 today or $100 a year for 5 years if interest rates are 10%. Make sense?
Mhm.
But we have another piece, right? We have that future value. We also have that $1,000 we're getting 5 years from now. interest rate is 10%. And well, you guys have done enough of these now, you can do this in your head, right? $620.92, right?
Yeah, it's my head.
Well, Nate did it in his head. Because you know,
Subtract the present value.
yeah, exactly. You know it has to add up to $1,000, right? So I knew it had to add up to $1,000. So what happens? We have the 5 coupon payments are worth this to us today, $379.08. That $1,000 is worth $620.92 today. The whole contract is the summation of those two. $1,000, right? In other words, I'm telling you, you should be willing to pay $1,000 for a contract that's going to pay you back $100 a year, and then give you your $1,000 back in 5 years, right? Which makes sense, right? If you say 10% is a fair return for this contract, spend $1,000, $100 back 1 year later. What kind of return is that? 10%. 2 years later, you get back another 10%. And so on. You get back 10% every year, then you get your money back. Right? So that's the contract. This particular bond, you know, the present value equals the future value. Now-
Something right. So
Oh, go ahead.
the second part of it, I understand subtracting it, like calculation part, was the future value is 1,000 and the.
Future value is
Am I
1,000.
supposed to be in begin mode or end mode?
Doesn't matter because you're not using the payment key. So make sure you clear your register, right? Okay, so your payment's 0. Then you're gonna have future values 1,000. You're moving it 5 years. I have 10%. It's all for present value.
So, this might be the dumbest question I've asked yet, but why are we even solving these? Because everything we just solved for you gave in the beginning. It's almost $1,000.
Oh, you'll see in a minute. When I throw you a curveball, you'll see. Yeah.
The reason you're looking at it is maybe because inflation or something screws all this up, or
When interest rates change, and how often do interest rates change? Yeah, every second, every day. The value is going to change of these bonds, and that's what we'll look at. Yes.
When you buy a bond, do they say, here's the coupon payment, or do they say, here's the percentage? Like, because then they're implying that the yield or a percentage, right?
Yeah. So what they're going to do is they're going to say this particular bond, right? They'll tell you pay 7.25% per annum, right?
Right.
Now in the old days, the coupon had the dollar amount written there, but they didn't have to do that, right? You know, 7.25 is $72.50 a year. Paid semi-annually, divide that by 2, $36.25.
So they're saying on face value.
On face value, yes. Yes. It's always on face value. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. So it's always based on that $1,000, right? So the good thing is we know the face value is always 1,000. So when we're given that interest rate for the coupon, it's always that percent times 1,000. It's very easy. Questions? No. And again, you could have done this all in one step.
I have a question. So you actually give them $379 or you?
If you're going to buy this bond, you're giving them $379.08 for the $100 coupon. Plus, you also have to pay for that 1,000 future value. So you got to pay another $620.92. So if you buy this bond, you're paying $1,000 in total today. And it's giving you these two pieces.
But that doesn't mean they have to sell it to you for 1,000. They can sell it to you for.
Well, the market's going to determine what it sells for, right? And we'll look at that.
I guess that's why I was wondering if they quoted percentages, because if they don't, they quote a percentage, they're implying that there's a certain yield.
Yeah, and we'll look at that. You'll find out bond traders, don't dirty themselves talking about dollars.
Right.
They always talk percentages. And so you go to a bond trade, bond trader, you never see the word dollars on it. Bless you.
So then you're getting $1,000 plus the 10%, or the 10%
So-
a year, or what's?
Okay, so you pay the $1,000, right? You get back $100 each year, and then you get back $1,000 when it matures.
If it was that easy, everybody would, that was conservative and had money to invest, would just do that.
Yes, yes. And I went to my financial planner, back actually in the summer, right? Because a lot of my wealth's in a retirement account here that work for the state. And he looks at me, looks at my information, goes, boy, your age, you should be like 40% bonds. And I'm 0% bonds, right? And we'll talk about why as we unfold through the day. Right? So why am I violating this basic concept that all financial planners are taught?
Mark is fantastic.
Okay, so anyway, what you could do, what Nate did there, when he calculated the values bond, he said, well, wait a minute. I can put this all in the calculator in one step. I don't have to do it in the two steps. I don't have to do the coupon annuity and that future value. I could do it all in one step because guess what? If you put 100 as your payment and 1,000 your future value at the same time, the N is the same for each and the I is the same for each, right? The calculator, if you put them all both in together, the calculator is telling you that, hey, the N of 5 tells the calculator there's 5 payments. The N of 5 tells the calculator that future value is moving back 5 years. They're both at the same interest rate. You solve for present value, you get $1,000. Right? So you can do it all in one step. Right? And
But if the rates are the same, right?
because the rates are the same. Yeah. And the rates are always going to be the same, right? Because the market, those rates are going to value both the coupon and the future value the same way. So in this case, when the coupon rate equals that market rate of interest, right? When you see coupon, again, for contract, the rate in the contract is the same as the rate in the marketplace. If that happens, the price of the bond today times 0 equals that future value. If you talk to a bond trader and you ask them, what's the price of this bond? They won't tell you it's $1,000 today. They'll tell you it sells at par, right? Just think of golf. Golf, par means you got what you're supposed to get, right? For a bond trader, par is 100%. It's selling for 100% of that future value. So it sells for $1,000. So par always tells you the bond sells for $1,000 or 100% of the $1,000. Right? So if you talk to a bond trader, it's like you got to learn their language. So we're trying to learn their language. All right, let's relax this a little bit. What happens if we have the same bond, same contract, coupon rate's 10%, so the coupon's $100. I don't even bother telling you the maturity value or the future value because it's always 1,000, right? So I don't even have to expend that energy anymore. 5-year bond sale, so same contract, but now the market rate of interest is 8%. So what happens if the market rate of interest goes down, right? So the market rate of interest changes if you value each of the two pieces at $1,079.85. Or if you value both pieces together, right, There's our value today. So think what this is telling you. If interest rates decline to 8%, what's the value of this bond going to be in the market? The price is going to be bid up, right? When the price reaches $1,079.85, you pay that today. All right. The first year you get back $100. Second year you get back 100, and so on, right? And the fifth year you get back your last $100 and 1,000. If this happens, you buy the bond for this price, $1,079.85. You get back the contract. You are earning 8% a year, right? And so market rate of interest is 8%. The price of this bond is going to be bid up in the marketplace, so you earn 8%. That's the fair rate of return, right? So the market's active enough, liquid enough, there's enough traders, that's where the price is going to go to. So every day, when interest rates change, the price of the bond's going to change.
Does that percentage change with the length of it typically?
Yes.
Is the same bond as-
Yes, yeah, yeah, and we'll look at that too. Yeah. So think what's going on here. Interest rates came down, right? So they're now less than 10%. They're 8%. What happened to the bond price? To go up or down? Oh, right. What are interest rates doing right now? They're going up, right? So we'll look at that after the break. What happens to bond prices when interest rates go up? Yes, right? So, but let's look at our second option here.
It's like one of those games.
I know.
What's that?
It feels one of those shows that we have games and we tease you, and after the break we'll tell you more.
Yes, yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. And I always wanted to do game show folks, right? Okay, so let's see. Our next location.
Right, give it a shake.
What's the shape?
Skip the shape.
And a general location.
Skip the shape. Just put it up.
It's not the United States. It looks like.
Richard this morning guessed Tuscaloosa.
I lost my connection here.
It's kind of third world. Depends on what part you go to.
Alabama.
It's seriously third world.
That's so late. How's she doing?
No one's doing better than her.
Yeah.
Ask me, how am I doing?
I know, you have been busy.
No, she's good. She played in the snow. They had a snow day the other day. And it's not so much that they can't get to class, it's that
All right.
all the teachers and staff can make their
Second
work.
one.
Yeah.
All right. Let me give you a shape.
Because those have been so helpful.
The shape. I gave you these shapes last time, right?
Yeah.
Not the same.
Oh, yeah.
I'll pick up.
Oh, there's remember, there's two that are kind of round and a couple that are kind of long, like this.
What's it called?
Okay, so this
Madagascar.
is Central South America, this next option, right? What is that?
Argentina, Peru, Central.
Well, yeah, Peru is that. So Peru and so Lima, Peru, and Panama City. Now I haven't been to either one of these locations, but core 15 were freaked out, as I told you, with poverty in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Which is not poverty. I couldn't quite get it, but I'd say they go to downtown LA more disturbed going to Buenos Aires. But if that disturbs you, Lima and Panama City are going to disturb you even more, right? I don't think it should disturb you. I think people adjust to their lifestyle. And some people don't have a tougher lifestyle. But anyways, you get the idea. I mean, I think they'd be very interesting locations. Lima, people tell me, is this one of the places to go to in South America. I mean, I've heard great things. Has anybody been to Lima?
Machu Picchu.
Is that a true assessment?
Yeah, it's like the big city of Peru. The
Yeah.
summertime or winter there, it's the only time the sun goes up.
Oh, really? Otherwise, it's very cloudy. Okay. So we would be there summertime or beginning of summertime. Right. In Panama City, all right. Have you been to Panama City? We've been to Panama City. All right.
I've been to Costa Rica.
Close.
Oh, is
It's-
that on the extension? Costa Rica?
Yeah, the extension we don't know. We won't know the extension until after the fact, right? So, the logical extensions might be Costa Rica, might be Machu Picchu, it might be,
Not
So-
Venezuela.
not Venezuela that would not be a candidate for the extension. No, that would not. Yeah, they erupted in civil war there. So in this one, when I go back, the flight distance between the two is not. This is probably the longest distance between two of the locales, I think, that we have. So again, if you're really interested in this, and you guys can talk about it as a group, we would need, a couple people to present this in a couple weeks, right? So again, we'll give you guys 15 minutes. We'll have 2 presentations on Friday and 2 presentations on Saturday, 2 weeks, right? Going from 1 to 1:30. After you guys could eat your lunch or even finish your lunch in here. So there's a possibility number 2 there. And
I actually have been to Peru, if you guys raise your hand.
What'd you say?
Who's been approved?
Didn't you live there? I lived there, yeah.
oh, wow. So you speak Spanish fluently. You know
I mean, I
yeah, and this is an easier, South America is easier to find somebody who speaks the language, right? When we go to Malaysia, does anybody speak Malay? No. Singapore is easy. I can take us around Singapore. It's English. I can get us around Thailand too. My Thai's pretty good.
is that our next?
No.
No,
I've been there.
Yeah. But anyways, okay, so that's our next one. So, okay, take your break. We'll come back at 9:35. 9:35. Yeah. All right, use up 2 minutes of your break by telling me about your trip. Right. You can, now actually, you don't have to worry about anything in there, right? So what you're doing, look what you're doing here. So you're taking oops, there right now. Yeah, right. And you also have these other views. And so if you repeat it as we did, then you find a present day here, future day there, right? So your present day. And then you're going to need to then move it one more year, 5 more years. If you treat it as an end, then you find a present here, here. Then you have to move it 2 years here.
I know.
Right? So it depends on how you. Yes. Yes.
Crisis hit Korea.
Yeah, okay.
So usually.
Yeah, so you're still getting interest, right? So basically you do this, let's say future day, you say, okay, more interest from 4, so you brought to year 9,
It's like the choice.
and then you got one more year. Just one more, going from 9 to 10.
But you have to say.
No, just 1 year. You already, we did future day and enload, you already brought this last week, 1 year before. You already brought it to year 8. If you did future day and mode, brought to year 8, same concept, then you got.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Right up onto the shore, right up on the back of our fire station. Just a close guard. Good. It's an interesting day.
Oh, okay. Okay, so. Oh, it's going to be 8. Yeah. Yeah, because the guy who programmed your calculator takes whatever number you put in there and divides it by 100. So when you put 0.08, you're going to pick up very little.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So they're trying to make it easy for you, but they mess people up.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was working on my homework and I was hitting the 0 button and I was having every other key works.
Oh, really?
So calculator works fine except the 0.
Have you tried to reset it?
I did, yeah, reset it. If you hit it really, really hard, it'll sometimes. Sure. I bought a new one, but the store didn't have any, so I had to buy one online. Hasn't showed up yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably in my house right now.
Okay.
Or today sometimes.
Uh,
Yeah, it's my $2 app.
yeah, yeah. And those apps are fine, right?
Just do actual percentages of 0.08.
Yeah.
So do you keep up on your toes at all?
No. Very rarely. If I go to a Thai restaurant, I can practice a little bit. And it's, you know how it is, right? It's you got to think so much when you first do it. And then, the waitress or waiter, whoever speaks Thai back, and it takes a while to speak too fast. It takes you a while to pick up on it. But I find, I went back to Thailand 4 or 5 years ago to teach a class over there. After a couple of weeks, I was getting pretty good.
Yeah,
Right?
it comes back.
Yeah. It's the speed that really gets me.
The tone is what goes first.
Yeah.
You just,
Oh, yeah,
you remember the words, you remember, then the tones just go. Like I'll go, because I lived there for 2 years, and I was, when I was reading, I was writing, I was fluent. Like I
see that to me, man, you could read. That is unbelievable.
I was reading probably 5 to 6 months in country.
Oh, wow.
It's actually quite easy to read. It's a different concept for Americans, but once it clicks, it's really, really easy to follow it. But I haven't been back in 15 years and don't have a chance to speak, so it's like it's
Are there any Thai restaurants up in?
there are. They speak Isan.
Oh,
So
because they're from the north.
This was somebody bought.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Oh, wow, yeah.
so like I can't. I mean, first off, Nissan is slow.
Yeah.
But they don't understand what slow is. And so they speak that, and then it's the dialect. It's that Laos.
Right.
And it's right. I can't.
You're good, you're good.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you're
Talk to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll teach my kids. I always know she's in.
So my boss is really, and she said, hello.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
I want to get.
Yeah. That's the thing, a lot of the Thai restaurants in Vegas. Yeah. I'll ask them where they're from. They're in a interesting town on Easter, they're 250, that's toward where I live.
Singapore, I know that
I'll go in there and I'll talk, the one lady in there I'll talk to. And she's good, she knows her topics.
Older?
I think she's used to it.
Yeah, why does that happen? I always look curious when I can speculate.
Yeah. See, I also get a little bit of, you know, once a year usually on undergrad, it's okay. And then I can speak to them a little bit. I can go down on my office, I can practice all this.
Yeah.
Is she watching it? Is she able to see that? Did she see the choice?
Mhm. She said it was.
Do we have,
so much
we know our
pictures.
advocates for, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, or Peru and.
We're all waiting.
Are we waiting for the others? Okay.
I'll fill my cards. Fill my cards.
All right.
See, look how
I'm
mountainous
gonna
it
show you a
is.
picture of my son
They're
with his
way
good.
I'd love to get up here on some of these roads.
Those little lakes.
You know this, my son's good.
That just looks like fun right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Tennis player, Del Potro, right? So we ran into him in, Fort Wimbledon 2 years ago, 2016. Like the week before, we're going around town, he just comes off the tube, he's running around the subway. And he's walking around town by himself. So, my wife gets all excited, she asks if he'll take a picture with my son. Yeah. He's like 6'6", this guy. He's
You want to smack into the fourth round in the Australian?
yeah, so he's doing well. Okay. Let's, go back to a little plans. So we saw what happened here. In this case, market rate of interest of 8%, which is below the coupon rate. So the bond is selling above 1,000. We would say it sells for a premium, right? It sells for more than 1,000. How much is the premium? $79.85. So in this case, we have our contract rate, coupon rate, is greater than the market rate. So 10% coupon rate, 80% market rate. Therefore, the price gets bid up. Sells at a premium. Right. Make sense? The alternative situation, if same bond, same exact bond, but now the market rate is 12%. What happens? Price is now below 1,000. So in this case, our contract rate of 10% is less than the 12% market rate. So the bond's going to sell at a discount. Right? You want to practice a couple of these? Yes.
So the bond guys never talk dollars. How would they describe that bond in a market that pays 12%?
They would say this bond sells for 92.79, and they would mean that's a percent of 1,000. So if you ask a bond trader, what's his bond sell for? It's at 92.79. Well, I'll show you a bond trader's page. All right, so here's a bond. Harris still, they're not around anymore. Yeah, Caesar's bought it, right? Okay, so Harrah's, used to have these bonds 9 7/8. In the old days, coupons weren't quoted in decimal format. Just like stocks didn't used to trade in decimal format, right? And so they traded, coupons were always listed in eighths. We still see some old bonds where they're listed in eighths, and so we all would know this would be 9.875%, right? So it's 7 divided by 8 is 0.875, so 9.875%. The 10-year bond, the coupons are still paid annually, maybe easy for you. It's a $1,000 bond, because they're all $1,000 bonds. So 3 questions, part A. What's this bond worth? How much would you pay for this bond if the market rate of interest was 7%? Then how much would you pay for this bond if the market rate of interest was 9%? And how much would you pay for this bond if the market rate of interest is 11%? So you need to know, what, if you have a calculator, when you're doing a bond problem, remember you're using all 5 of your calculator keys, right? So in this case, I'm asking you for the price you're selling for the present value. So you put in a contract, the end, the payment, the future value, and then you put in the market rate of interest and solve for the present value. Like, I was dating my wife. We went to the Philippines to visit. We went on a trip. We went to stay in this hotel, and you know that scratching sound you were hearing? That's what we heard in our Wallet Park hotel.
Country was that?
It was Baguio in Philippines. And we determined it must be like mice or rats running through the wall, right? No, payment is going to be derived from the coupon, right? So to get the payment, it's going to have to be coupon rate times 1,000, right? So in this case, it's going to be 9.875% times 1,000. Right? So if you look at your calculator, the easy way to do that, you just put in 9.875, that's our percent. So hit the percent key, right? That turns it to a decimal. Times 1,000 equals, so it tells you that's the coupon fee. All right, 7% is the market rate. How much will that bond sell for? So 1201. How many cents?
93.
93 cents. Right. You know it has to be a premium bond, right? It has to sell for more than $1,000 because it's paying more than 7% interest, right? So this bond, N is 10. Put in our contract, right? N is 10. Payment is $98.75. Future value is 1,000, and then we put in our interest rate of 7%. So this part B, the only thing that changes now is our interest rate changes, right? The contract is still the same contract. So it's still gonna sell for a premium because market rate's 9%, it pays 9 7/8, but the premium won't be as high, right? How much will it sell for? $1,056.15. Part C, well now, market rate of interest is 11% more than the coupon rate. It's gonna sell for a discount, less than 1,000. How much is it?
933.75.
933.75. Questions? So you see what happens. If interest rates in the marketplace go up, bond prices go down. Or inverse, if interest rates go down, bond prices go up. So when I'm talking to my financial planner guy, he says, Mike, at your age, you should be 40% bonds. I say, well, interest rates are going up. Why do I want to be in bonds? Right? I'll diversify across spectrum. I'll go international, domestic, things like that. And he gives up because he's afraid I might know more. Only because I have this PhD. So I don't know if I know more or not. But, or maybe he doesn't want to offend me.
So should you sell them when the market?
Well, okay. There's another caveat to this, right? So if currently I think interest rates are going up, so I don't want to be in bonds because they're so highly correlated, inversely correlated with interest rates. If I was going to go bonds, very short term, because the effect of interest rates going up on the price coming down is less than the long term. We'll look at that in a few minutes. So some people would argue, okay, Mike, you should still be in bonds, but just go short term. You're worried about that.
Assuming you can buy the bond for cheaper when it's going up.
Well, if interest rates are high and you buy bonds, then you can make money. Go back to 2008, right? We had a shock to the system, especially locally, right? Everybody's really concerned about all these local companies, especially these casinos, having trouble. So if you went out and found an MGM bond in 2008, the risk was so high, the market rate of interest on their bonds was like 20–30% or something, right? Because people thought they were going to go bankrupt. So you could buy those bonds, a 30-year bond for like $300–400, right? And then when the economy recovered, they get back to 1,000 or even above, right? So you made all kinds of money on that. Okay? So if you think interest rates are going to decline, that's when you want to buy bonds, right? They can decline for a couple reasons. The example I gave was because default risk really eased, right? But you could have general interest rates. What's happening now is general interest rates are going up. So, bond interest rates are going up.
So when do you lose on your bond? It's like if they file bankruptcy or something like that?
Yeah, okay, if you buy a bond, you lock into that contract, right? As long as they fulfill that contract. But if you bought, Caesars bonds or Station Casinos bonds in 2005, they didn't fulfill that contract, right? So they defaulted, they quit paying the interest.
So Caesars had a 13, right? So you lose everything on that
You
bond?
lose everything. Now, usually there's some kind of negotiation to, because it's a contract, right? So these bondholders are going to go to court. The company on their side are going to file for bankruptcy protection, because in this country they're allowed to do that. So the judge will appoint a trustee to kind of negotiate emergence from that. That's what happened with Caesars, they emerged from that, right? If you go back to Stratosphere, that's more of a classic case. So they defaulted on their bonds and, basically, went out with bankruptcy, right? So they went to court and the judge said, hey, we'll give the bondholders something. You don't have any money, we'll give them ownership of the remaining assets. So you got to stop. The old stockholders were knocked out. And so the bondholders became the new stockholders. So Carl Icahn, clever guy, he was buying all these bonds for pennies on the dollar, these Stratosphere bonds, got converted to stock, so he owned the Stratosphere. That's how he got it.
Oh, that's how you got it.
Yeah.
So if we assume that, like I bought a bond at face value,
Mhm.
why would I ever sell below par? Because I can just hold to maturity and get my deal.
Okay, yeah, you're exactly right. So you might think, hey, I buy for 1,000, interest rates go up, worth less than that, so I lose money. Why would I ever do that? You would only do that because you say, well, now the market's changed. I could sell it for this price. I could buy a bond that now pays 11%, right? You can earn a higher, right? So it doesn't really matter so much, right? But you've locked in a lower rate than what the market rate is. Yes.
Are bonds priced at the market rate or where they think the market rate's going to be? If a bond pays 10%, the current market's 10%, it's going to sell at par value. But if I think interest is going down and the market thinks the interest is going down and the bond traders think the interest is going down, they're not going to sell it for par value, are they?
No, because now but then the market rate's going to change.
Right.
Because they're going to drive the market rate. So if the underwriters price the bond to sell at par, and they say, hey, we think the market rate's 10%, they're wrong, because everybody else thinks it's 9.8, then it'll sell for that price. Okay. So the market will determine. And sometimes underwriters are a little bit off, not usually so much.
Right.
Do they look at current, or do they look like, say, this bond's gonna mature in 10 years? We want to look at yield rate 10 years
Yeah,
from now?
we're going to look at the 10-year yield. So you look at the yield curve, you're going to look at the 10-year yield.
So they've got to make forecast 10 years
Right.
in advance to determine.
And but you have all kinds of yield curves. So you have a bunch of financial instruments that are currently being traded at the same risk. So you can look at what interest rates are. All right, let me have you do this problem. Let's get into a fun problem. Okay, so we have this bond, Las Vegas Sands. You bought it 1 year ago. All right, so last year, January 19th. So January 19th, whose birthday is it today?
Well, not today, but the 24th,
24th?
Wednesday.
Okay. Oh, okay, so almost your birthday. All right, so you bought a bond a year ago on your birthday, when you're 1 year young, for $829.73. When you bought it, the market rate of interest was 10%. So now, when you bought it, it was a 20-year bond. Today, 1 year later, it's now a 19-year bond. But, okay, the coupon's 8%. But now the current market rate's gone up to 13%. So market rate of interest has gone up. What's happened to the bond value?
Going down.
Going down, inverse, right? So figure out the price today, and then tell me the percentage change. So you can figure out, bless you. So you can figure out how much money you made or lost, right? And of course, on your brokerage account, they'll do that calculation for you, but I'll show you what they're doing. So again, remember they've got a fund manager coming to speak next Thursday evening, 25th, to my student fund class. And I told my students that some of you guys might be coming. They were very excited. Is that 5:30?
Right here.
Right here. And they'll have some local CFAs coming, chartered financial analysts. Thursday, the 25th, 5:30 p.m. right, let's put in a contract. How many years left on this contract? 19, right? And it's annual, so that's our period. What does it pay every year? What's the payment?
$80.
80. And what's the future value? 1,000. All right. So that's the contract. That's easy. The interest rate is now what? 13%. So we solve for the present value. What's this bond worth now? 653.10, right? All right, so we have, we want to figure out our percentage change in the value of this bond, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to take, what's the value of our asset currently? $653.10. Our basis, or what we bought it for, $829.73. And that's our basis, right? So we want to know what's our percentage gain or loss relative to what we paid for, right? So we lost money. How much money did we lose?
$176.73, 63 cents. Percent?
No,
21.28%.
dollars. Should be like 170.
176.63.
176.63. Yeah, thank you. Over 829.73. And yeah, what was that percent?
21.29.
21.29%, right? So Vilma, you're very upset you bought this bond a year ago, right? You lost 21.29%. That's bad. Now, in most economies, interest rates are not going to move 3% a year. This is saying interest rates went from 10% in the market to 13%. Market rate of interest typically won't change that much, but it could happen for an individual bond, right? If the risk component changes, they become a riskier company for whatever reason, the probability of bankruptcy or default goes up, or at least perceived that way in the marketplace, you could lose like this, right? Let's look at the other side of this. What happens if the market rate of interest, instead of going to 13%, goes to 7%? Do the same calculation. And we got two more options for you guys. Think about the next option. I should be an artist, right?
Mhm.
What's the value of this bond?
1103.36.
1103.36. Any questions on that?
I have a question on both. It doesn't matter that you bought it a year ago for 829. I know we're using 19 as a period.
Yeah. The way I set it up, when you bought it, it was a 20-year bond. And I'd say this bond matures in 19 years. I mean, 19 years from now. Right?
So that doesn't, and I guess I'm not putting in the 829.73 anymore.
No, you're not going to. The only way you consider that is when you figure out, okay, how much have you made or lost money? Okay, right? So that's where that goes into play. No, the payment's based on 1,000, right? So the payment's always based on the future value. So it's based on the contract future value. So that's not going to change.
So where are you losing money?
Okay, well, you're losing money. The interest rate went up to 13%. So now the bond is worth less. So last year you bought it for $829.73. You look at your look online, look at your statement, your bond is now worth this, right? So you lost in principal 21.29%. Now, if you hold this bond to maturity, it might not matter to you.
Okay.
You might not worry about the year-to-year fluctuation.
So we don't have to calculate that $80 or is that calculated in the 653?
That's in the 653.
So we wouldn't say we bought it for $829, but we also got $80.
Okay,
this year.
that's a different question. I'll look at that in a second. We'll look at that question in a second.
You're not losing anything, it's just lost opportunity. You probably should have bought it
Plus that.
this year, not last year.
Yeah, but there's two kinds of people that buy bonds, right? There's people like us that are investors. We're gonna buy it, a lot of times hold it to maturity. There's also traders, right? And the traders are gonna buy bonds when they think interest rates are going down, not when they're going up. But you do have an opportunity cost, you're right? So in this case, now your bond is worth this because the market says that bond should be paying 13%. You hold it to maturity, you're only earning that 10%.
And anybody can sell a bond at any time? You don't
Yes.
have to hold it to maturity?
You do not. Some bonds are in more thinly traded markets than others. Some bonds don't trade every day, so you might have to discount the price to motivate someone to buy it. Yeah, we'll look at the marketplace a little bit. All right, so is everybody okay with finding this value? Right, with the same contract, but now we have 7% was our market rate. So now what happened? We have a bond where we've made money. The assets now worth $1,100, $103.36. We paid $829.73. That's our basis. So how much money did we make in dollar terms?
64.
We made $273.64 in our investment. Our return is how much? 32%. 32.98%. If you sold. If you sold it, exactly. Okay. And that's your return on the principal, right? That's your capital gain, in other words, on that bond.
And you'd really be selling it at, can't say at par, but that's like the value of the bond, whether or not you sell it to that much.
Yeah, that's how much somebody's willing to pay you for it at today's market interest rate. Right?
Yeah, that's 7%.
Yeah. Now, when you buy a bond, what's your return? The return on the bond is made up of two pieces, right? We have a coupon yield plus or minus the change in value of the bond, or we'll call this capital gain or loss, right? So in the first case, right, we lost 21.29%, but we also made some money because we had a coupon. So we got a coupon of $80 on our investment of $829.73. And then we lost money at 21.29%, right? So what's our percentage coupon yield? What's 80 divided by 829.73? 9.64%. So we made 9.64%. We lost 21.29%. So overall, we lost, how much is that? Is that 11.65%? Is that negative? Did I do my math right? So 11.65%. So it's not as bad as it looks at first blush, right? So we did have a little bit of gain. And same thing. If interest rates went down, you made 9.64% of the coupon, then you made another 32.98%. So you made 42.62, right?
The first one still lost though, just not
Yeah, so first is a loss, it's not as bad. Second one, keep better.
So it's really more about knowing when you bought it and how much you bought it for, in order to be able to calculate if you should be selling it or you should be holding it or whatever.
Right. And it really, it depends on what other choices you have, right? And if interest rates went up, you got killed in that bond, you really got to decide, well, what do you think the future has in store, right? Now, if the interest rates went up in this bond because default risk increased, and you think they're going to recover, then you probably want to hold it. If you think they're going to continue to denigrate, then you want to get rid of it. Questions? All right, so you guys can now become bond traders because you know the basic rules. So basic rules. Coupon rate. Again, when you see the word coupon, think of contract, right? If the rate in the contract is the same as the market rate, the bond sells at par, right? If the coupon rate is less than the market rate, it means you're not getting enough from the coupon. You're not going to buy that bond unless you can make something else, right? Make a capital gain. So you buy it at a discount. You buy it for less than 1,000, you'll sell it for 1,000 when it matures, or you get 1,000 when it matures, so you'll make up the difference. If the coupon rate is extra, you're getting more than the market rate, then you got to pay a premium. The prices bid up in the marketplace. And then the basic inverted rule, right? Interest rates increase, bond values go down. Interest rates go down, market rates go down, then that bond values increase. Right? Make sense? All right, so let's now relax this whole thing and look at what happens when we look at semi-annual coupon, right? Let's say we have a 10-year bond, coupon rate's 10%, market rate of interest is 8%, semi-annual coupon stuff. So we look at it and say, all right, how's this going to work? So we still have the coupon rate times 1,000, the maturity value, but now we're dividing it by 2, right? So it pays $100 a year, but it pays $50 every 6 months. The year's maturity is now, well, how many periods to maturity? It's a 10-year bond, but there's 20 6-month periods. Future value is 1,000, market rate of interest, 8% a year or 4% per period. So you see what happens when you have a bond, semi-annual, your payment, your N, and your I are all affected, right? Future value, present value, not affected. So when you figure out value today, 1,135.90. Let me give you a couple of problems to do. Do these 2 problems. And we'll see what you guys come up with. Yeah, your next 2 trip options are from my suggestions. I'm very proud of the next 2.
Oh, that's fun. And you've been to both places?
I've been to, no, just one of the places. Well, actually, there's 2 trip options. There's 4 places total. I've been to 3 of the 4 places. So everybody's recovering from their illnesses.
On the Disney one, do we use annual or?
I use annual, yeah.
What is zero coupon?
The coupon rate is 0%.
So no interest.
Yeah, no coupon. We'll talk about why that would be. Why would a company issue one of those? And why would buy one of those, right? Okay, we'll talk about that, yeah. Yeah, those used to be more attractive until Big Brother got their fingers into it. We'll talk about it. All right, let's look at the first one. So let's put in our contract. What is my end?
32.
32, right? 16 times 2, 32 6-month periods. What is my payment? $72.50. So $145 divided by 2, $72.50. And my future value?
1,000.
1,000. How do you know it was 1,000? I didn't tell you. It's always 1,000.
Always
Always 1,000. So, is everybody okay with that contract? You got the contract in there? So, with a bond, all you're doing, we've always been calculating the present value. We've got the contracts. We just got to figure out what the market rate of interest is. But I'll change that down the road. But we always be given a contract. The end, the payment, the future value. You'll always know that. That's the contract. Sometimes you know the price. You got to figure out the I. But to this point, we've always known the market interest rate. We'll figure out the present value. Okay, so what is my I? 5.5, right? 11% divided by 2. So what's my value today? About 60. How many cents?
82.
32.
82.
82. Thank you. All right. Y'all get that? All right. The next one is a little tricky, and I threw a curveball in there. A red herring, some extra information. All right, so let's put the contract. What is my end? 30. Just put 30. What's my coupon payment?
0.
0. And future value $1,000. Why would anybody buy a bond that doesn't pay a coupon? Because they're going to get the future value, right? So what's my interest rate? 9%. What do I do with that 10%? Ignore it, right? That's with another company, you know. So a AA rated paycheck bond pays 10% coupon, so what? It's a contract of a different bond, extra information. So how much would you pay this bond?
$75, 37 cents.
$75.37. It's like, okay, why would you buy the bond? Well, if you buy the bond for this price, $75.37, in 30 years, you'll get back $1,000. Every year, you're earning 9%. Bless you. You're just not realizing it until it matures, right? But if you look at this bond a year from now, it's a 29-year bond, right? If interest rates are still 9%, we know the rest of the contract. How much will this bond be worth if interest rates don't change on us? Market rates of interest don't change. A little bit more, right? $82.15, right? So what happens? We know the return we get on a bond is made up of two things, right? The coupon yield plus the percentage change in the bond value. In this case, our coupon yield is 0. How much money do we make on the change in the value? Well, it went up $6.78, right? On our investment is $75.37. What is that?
9%.
9%. So we're making 9%. We just don't realize it yet. Right? We just don't get on. We could go out and sell it for the $82.15 and make our 9%. Right? So that's why people would buy these bonds. So originally, Disney was famous for issuing these zero coupon bonds. They would do. I think they had 100-year zero coupon. Right? And for a 30-year zero coupon bond, and then of course as time goes through, they have a bunch of different issues out there. So there's different time periods. If you have the idea is, you have a kid or a grandkid, and they're a kid, right? You don't want to give them money. You might want to give them a bond. You can give them a U.S. savings certificate, but you can give them something that pays a little higher interest rate, like a Walt Disney bond. Give it to the kid. It's got a picture of, Mickey and Mouse on it. They're all happy. And 30 years later, they're going to have a bunch of money, right? So that's what people use them for. And people like them because they'd say, hey, you pay taxes on interest you realize, but you're not going to pay taxes on capital gains until it matures, right? So the government saw these bonds out there, and they changed the tax code because, come on, the tax code is so simple. We got to put some complication into it just to make it fun. So they say, okay, you buy a bond, you got to pay taxes on imputed return, right? So you still have to pay, nowadays you got to pay tax on that 9% because you'd have to do the extra calculation. So if you didn't take this class, how would you know to do that calculation? I guess you get TurboTax or something figured out. Or your brokerage statement would have it in there, right? So you would have all that stuff. So that's kind of the way the world works there. All right, questions?
So if interest rates change on zero coupon bond, and because of this tax law going down, we want to sell and buy cheaper.
Yeah, so there becomes tax effects, right? Oh yeah. So yeah, there are people who've been traded just for the tax reasons. Yeah, and so I get very annoyed by that as a purist, right? You got a tax code that's motivating people to do things they wouldn't do otherwise. It doesn't make sense.
And then issue with 401k though too, and you're calculating all the future value and all that stuff, and you're calculating the cost of living increase, but you're not really taking into account taxes when you're going to get hit with.
Yes, yeah. You got taxes, you got inflation, you got to consider those things. Yeah. Yes.
Isn't there different types of like the I bond or is this like
yeah, those are government bonds, right? Right. So, okay, when this municipal comes out for state of Nevada, right? The interest you get from that bond is not subject to federal taxation, right? they almost changed the tax code. When they changed the tax code back in December, they almost changed how some municipals were viewed. Municipals that were funding large projects for private industries, like graders in this case, they would then be subject to taxes. And so the Nevada senators had to get in there and fight that, so they wouldn't do that. Right. And then you have, you know, these treasury bonds that are not subject to state taxes, but don't pay state taxes in Nevada, but it matters to you in California.
I would say about a bunch back in the day when I was in the industry.
Yeah.
They're just good kids, like they're like $3,
Right.
$25.
Yeah, so there's tax benefits for those in high tax states. Yeah. All right, so let me do one last little thing here, and then we'll talk about our next place. I already told you our next place.
Clearly.
Nate will get it. He's got the first two. He's 2 for 2.
I know, he's doing good.
Okay, so, oh, this is a good one. I really thought about this one. So, okay, this question is yield to maturity. Now we're doing the other side, right? We say, okay, here's a bond. We know the future value, the par value, 1,000. It's a 15-year bond, annual 10% coupon. We know what it sells for in the marketplace. So this is more realistic, right? When we look at bonds, we're going to know the price. So the question is, are we willing to buy it? Because what kind of yield are we going to get? We buy this bond for 9/28/09 and hold it until maturity. What will be our return? Now notice what you have to do here. We get 11%, but notice what you have to do. The present value has to be as a negative. So the key thing here is present value is one sign, future value and payment are the opposite sign. If you look at it, you say, okay, you buy the bond, money's leaving your pocket when you buy it. Every year, in this case, annual coupon, you're getting back $100. And when it matures, you get back $1,000. Those are positive. So in a bond, case of a bond, payment and future value are always the same sign, always. And then present value is always the opposite sign. Yes?
So when we first started talking about this, if you were to buy it at its par value, the yield to maturity was 10%.
Yes.
So
We're buying it for a discount. Therefore, we're getting our 10% from the coupon, plus we're getting extra because the price goes at a discount. Right? And so that will average to be that extra 1% a year. And we'll look at that in more detail. Okay, so now our next location. We're into Europe, right? Nate, where are we?
Does this class like help us? Would this country be beneficial for this?
Was it one of the practices for one of the chapters in the book?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember. Greece. That's not Greece.
What?
You think I'm that bad of an artist? Italy. Oh my God. You guys are.
Netherlands.
Norway.
That's right.
Oh, somebody said it.
Ireland.
Ireland.
Oh.
Just the island Spain. Yes. But you can't bring any clothes.
Right?
Alan,
All right.
you can bring it all, so you can't bring any clothes to we can move back.
Ireland in November?
All right. So there's the
And Berlin.
So I've never been to Berlin. I think that'd be kind of cool, looking at kind of the old East-West split and see what's going on there. Bitcoin, check out Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be completely blown up by then. Dublin. I mean, it's Ireland, right? I mean, come on. Perfect Ireland. Well, I included Northern Ireland in mine. Maybe I should have curved it the other way.
he was looking at it from the other
It was a
side.
perfect
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the North Pole.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
It was a very good
There
person.
isn't-
if it was portrait.
So there's our locations. I'll tell you, two years ago, we went to Warsaw and Prague. It was cold, but I thought it was great. I mean, Nikki and Chris had got the cohort these coats that were amazing. And you're really basically, you're doing the company visits, you got these organized tours. So the weather didn't really affect things too much. I thought that was, don't let the weather get in your head about this. Well, we don't know the order, right?
Oh, you don't?
We don't know the order, so it could actually be Berlin, then Dublin, right? Right. Now, Dublin I've been to. That's my homeland as a Sullivan. My wife arranges these summer trips every year. So what her goal is, at least from my perspective, is always putting me in an uncomfortable situation to see how I overcome it, right? So she had me drive around the country in a stick shift, right? I'm on the opposite side of the car in a stick shift. So I'm driving on the other side of the road, shifting with my left hand, and the roads are like, I don't know. The cars are little, and the roads are twice as wide a car, but maybe an extra inch, right? And then every road, these country roads have these rock walls on both sides. And then the locals drive at like 70 miles an hour. It's a horrifying experience, right? So the mental stamina of keeping direction straight and looking out for these cars flying by, because you'd always pull way over so they wouldn't hit you. It was great.
Can we meet
We meet Bono.
He'll be here.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of famous people, but I don't know Bono. Yeah, maybe he could do a tour. Is he from Northern Ireland or regular? That's important to find out. But yeah, we can we'll put a request to meet Bono.
They'll be dying to meet us.
All right, so
Has anybody been to Ireland before?
couple Ireland. How about Berlin?
Anybody been to Berlin before?
Oh yeah, what do you think of Berlin?
I don't know, I don't care for Europe. So.
Oh, anti-Europe. So you're not gonna be in that group presenting these European options.
Probably not.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Take a break till 10:35. Okay.
That one. That one.
I know where you're going, what you're going to go for.
One.
I'm excited. I don't know. No?
Yeah, I haven't been to Ireland and I couldn't go to Berlin when I was over there because it was communist. Well, East Germany was.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Oh, why are you right back to it?
Go ahead and do that. When you come back, you find you're really out of sorts, then just come and ask.
Oh, careful.
Okay.
I know, it's not a very good setup.
One more. Nate is gas for my pictures. I mean, that's obviously utter.
Obviously.
No, you guess the other. You guessed. I don't know. Big guy.
on like a whole, you know, take a tally, what the price might have to be.
There is.
Like,
Stay warm.
Some issues.
like they make that.
They're like, it's gonna be a bunch
Or
of.
you think everyone like one? Cause I've heard one.
Yeah.
So they do people build so big, splits, so everyone was, not way too much. But maybe we're
But I think it's one close.
Could be worth a lot. Hey, Bob, how are you?
Hey, good, how are you doing? Guess who didn't show up? Yeah. Well, one of them can't, he's in prison to play music sprays. So yeah, but the other one didn't, so.
Is that an answer to the judge right there?
You know, I would think so. She asked us a couple questions and stuff like that. She asked us if we found it acceptable to have the mother come and visit at our place. We said, of course, which I think pleased her because they want the best for the child rather than no, you can't.
Well, they have to set the reunification goal initially.
Yeah.
Even if it's not realistic, they have to say we have at least shown that reunification was discussed.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's just ridiculous beyond belief. But you have to do that. Well, it's not a fun process, so.
It's not.
Think about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I was just playing on Southwest, last year sometime, and they're quite still.
So that's why I was like.
I can have it all the time.
And then
I'm like, go because for dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
If I think like,
oh, maybe I wanna go somewhere.
yeah,
Wait,
I've got,
yeah.
I've got different points, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And
especially when they say, oh, I have a companion pass.
Oh, yeah.
So like you work by, you just pick a companion. Oh, that's good too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
I then she's like used for any year. But really maintain it so that when I convert it towards his views, like I can get and also just to like use the I mean, I created other scenes you can like exercise and then everything happens. You know what she's
That's what it is. A little bit of that starting. I don't know. I remember when they looked into all that. Denver, that was a big deal. Yeah. It's like points, like we.
Like a dollar.
There's like some.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get a referral for justice. And then you'll get the point for, you know.
What do you guys ever do?
I know, I mean. There's a point which we get so many points up sure less, I can't switch to get anything worse.
That could be the next one. And then, the next one, the next two are also.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta kick them out.
The bros before, just disappear.
We don't know which way they're going. It's gonna be a double.
Thursday, I got
Or hold on talking. Talking in October. Right, what time did you go on break?
Anytime, because the previous break, we also went at 9:57.
Oh, it's always like 2:33 last time. So 2 minutes?
Well, we were supposed to be back at 35. So we are here. That's why.
Oh, I understand. It was like talking. I'm a big guy, I can handle it. I can hold it.
That's not good.
Yeah, you know what? Now we're talking about that.
How exciting is that we got to Berlin.
Yeah, so it should be.
I like that.
And then selling his bit.
Okay, we, ready to get started now. We have
How about Dan?
most of us. Let's see, you want me to draw the picture of the next?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can think about for a while. Let's see. Europe, it's in Europe, so.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. The next break, we'll do that. Okay, so. All right, so we just did this problem, right? We figured out our yield to maturity. So remember, when you buy this bond, you're paying $928.09. The first year you're getting $100, and it's going to go up in value a little bit until right when it matures, then you get $1,000 as a company, right? So if you want to figure out your overall return, your yield to maturity, in other words, your return, if you hold this until maturity, we know it's 11%, right? It's made up of what you get from the coupon plus or minus the change in the price, right? So the coupon, we know the first year we get back $100. We paid $928.09, so we're getting back 10.77%. 1 year later, the bond is worth now $930.18, right? We paid $928.09, so we made $2.09. We made 0.23%. If you add together the 10.7 and the 0.23, you get 11%. So just what we said we're going to get, right? So that's how it's split. So when you buy a bond, your return is from two sources: from the coupon yield, and from the change in the bond value. Yes.
So that yield to maturity, I was thinking that that's the holders to maturity.
Yes.
So wouldn't you just get the face value? You wouldn't get, or is that a
Yeah. So I just did it year by year. All right. So then, this is from a 15-year maturity to a 14-year maturity. So that first year, if you want to log into your account, you say, oh, my bond is now worth this price. They tell you from the coupon you were 10.77%. They tell you your bond price went up by 0.23%.
But you wouldn't, if you're holding it to maturity, you wouldn't sell it, right? So the change of price wouldn't matter.
That wouldn't matter to you. Okay. So you're earning 11% every year. I just wanted to prove to you where the 11% is.
I get it. Okay.
Because I know you're a skeptic, so I wanted to. Yeah.
What is it, 938?
Go back to 1,000.
Okay, 938 is now, how I got that is, if this now becomes a 14-year bond, right? And we lock into that 11%, what's it now worth? The $930.18.
given a year maturity, 11%, or are you calculating it?
I calculated first, right? You bought the bond originally, right? So I calculated this. And then if I said, hey, if I'm gonna hold it to maturity, I don't care what rates do, right? See, where is my 11% coming from, right? So the first year I'm gonna get a coupon of $100, I earned 10.77% there. Then, since I've locked in this 11%, since I'm gonna hold it to maturity, the bond value is gonna go up, right? Or if market rates don't change, that will be the bond value of the bond. It's showing in your account. Now, you're right, if interest rates change, the market rate is not 11% anymore, this bottom part changes, you're not earning 0.23%. So then if you sell it after 1 year and interest rates change, then you return something different. And we'll look at that sort of thing.
So on the other page, would you have to use the same 14 years, but use a different?
Use a different interest rate. Yeah, yeah. All right, you want to do a problem? We'll do this problem, and then we'll look at the real world. All right. So, let me do this problem. We have a Microsoft bond, right? Coupon rate 8.5%, matures in 12 years, sells for $835.60. Semi-annual, so I kind of made it more real world. Semi-annual coupon. What's the yield to maturity is the first part. Then what's the current yield, also known as the coupon yield, right? The word current means cash within 1 year or return within 1 year. So those are used interchangeably. Coupon yield or current yield. And then the third part is what's the expected percentage capital gain or loss for the first year.
Was that coupon rate in the second one? That's what-
Okay, so, yeah, so what you're gonna do here, this is gonna be a semi-annual, it's paid semi-annually, you guys saw a full year's worth of coupons. There'll be 2 coupon payments. So each coupon payment, the coupon rate's 8.5%. So 85 divided by 2, 42.50. So when you're going here, it's gonna be 2 of them together, right?
So it is times 2.
Yeah. But yeah, the word current means within 1 year, right? You're gonna get 2 coupon payments in 1 year. Yeah.
So for the last question, are you using the yield as your interest, or are you using
You're gonna use the yield as your interest, yes. So yeah, the yield you assume is your market rate of interest. Are we ready to look at this? All right, this is the first one. We'll put in our contract. How many periods in our contract?
24.
24, right? 12 years, but semi-annual, so 24. I put in the coupon payment already. 8.5%, so $85, but divided by 2, right?
Yep.
Every 6 months it pays $42.50. And 1,000 is the future value. All right. So there's our contract. How much is somebody paying for that contract? Money leaving your pocket minus $835.60. And when you solve for I, what do you get?
5.5
5.5. So that's a semi-annual rate, right?
times 2.
Times 2. So 11% per year, because we like to always state our interest rates in annual terms. All right. All right, then the current yield, all right, so within the first year, current just means first year, you're gonna get 2 coupon payments, right? Each coupon payment is $42.50, so it's at $85. Divided by the $835.60. And how much is that?
10.17%.
10.17%. All right, so you know if you buy this bond and hold it to maturity, you're going to earn 11% per year. From the coupon that first year, you're earning 10.17. Therefore, from the change in bond value, you're going to be earning 0.83%. Let's calculate that. Now, I'll warn you a little up front. We're gonna have a little bit of rounding because we didn't account for interest on interest, which is coupon yield, or, you know, so we didn't account for that. So we'll be a little bit off, but be a little bit of rounding, right? So here, what we want to do is we need to figure out value of the bond 1 year later, right? So we look at our calculator keys, and we know, hey, we know we're going to be given the contract, right? So what's our contract? So 1 year later, how many years left in our contract?
11 years,
11 years,
22 credits.
so 22 payments, right? The rest of the contract stays the same, $42.50 and the $1,000. Those don't change, again, because they're in a contract, right? Contract doesn't change. So now we want to figure out the value. What is the value of the bond 1 year later? We're going to use our market rate of interest, which we calculate as our yield to maturity, right? So what's my I going to be?
5.5.
5.5. It's the 11% divided by 2, 5.5% per 6 months. So now the value of this bond is how much? 842. Yep. 842.71. 71. Right? So we have a bond that now has gone up in value. By the way, since it was a discount bond, you're going to hold it to maturity, you know it's going to go up in value every year, right? So it's got to be a positive gain. Minus the 835.60. So we're making $7.11 on 835.60. What is that in percentage terms? 0.85%. We add that to the 10.17, and again, there's a little bit of rounding in there, so it's very close to 11%. All right, make sense? Do you want to see how it works in the real world? Okay. Our birthday girl wants me to. I wouldn't have waited for anybody else.
Work it, Bill, my work it.
Only works for today.
That's right.
One day only. Act now.
Yeah, only on cake day. What kind of cake did you get?
White chocolate raspberry.
Staying for lunch?
Yeah, I'm staying for lunch. Yeah. I'm a chocolate guy.
Did they ask you what cake you wanted?
Yeah, a long time ago when you filled out the survey, very, very, very,
Okay,
very
you
beginning of
ready?
this whole process. I forgot what I put.
Well,
I think most people.
okay, so
I didn't know. If I saw that.
let's,
I mean, oh.
gotta get rid of that, because I can't give away shorts.
It's already on the screen.
You got me worried there. That's good.
Only which ones?
Okay, so there's a site, and the government hasn't shut down yet. We can look at it. Okay, FINRA is this government, kind of semi-government sort of organization that reports information. So we look at investor information. Let's see. Tools and calculators or market data. And you see they give us all kinds of market data. You see the stock market is moving a little bit. Then we see information on bonds. And we can get bond quotes here. So this is really a pretty nice site, right? So you get bond quotes on treasury or agency bonds, like Freddie Mae, Fannie Mae. So and corporate bonds, different, 144As, municipal, securitized products. So all of these different things. We'll look at corporates though. What company do you want us to look up? Apple? All right, so we can type in Apple, the name, or we can do it our symbol, right? And let's see if Apple has any bonds. Well, they've got
A couple.
a lot of bonds, right? So the first question you might think of, we know Apple's got billions of dollars, right? Why are they issuing bonds? That seems kind of crazy. Well, one reason is a lot of their money was overseas, and now this tax code change, they're bringing it back, and they're paying, what, $36 billion in taxes or something? Enormous amount. So anyways, you got that. But you got another thing going on. Interest rates are so low, and their credit rating is high. They're not quite rated as high as the federal government, but they're pretty close. They're AA plus, right? They're not AAA, but they're safer than a lot of countries, right? And actually, what Apple, I think, isn't it worth more than the economy of Spain or something?
Probably.
Something like that, right? So anyways, you see they've issued a lot of bonds. They're doing it because they can borrow money very cheaply, and at least theoretically, that lowers their weighted average cost of raising money on projects. We'll talk about that as we go through the class.
What type of regulations govern the issuance of bonds? So my little photo company wanted to issue some bonds.
You can do it. Now, what governs it is more marketplace, right? Apple comes out with a bond, they go to a credit rating agency, they get rated, and they get an underwriter, usually a syndicate, to place to do the underwriting, and then the underwriters will place the bonds, right? Bonds are not typically sold to the general public. They could be, but they're usually placed. So large insurance companies, banks. So
I wanted to, talk to you.
yeah. So more. Let's say you go to Goldman Sachs, right? Okay. Apple goes to Goldman Sachs. They write a bond issue. Goldman Sachs takes it, and they talk to a bunch of large banks, insurance companies, funds, and they sell it all, right? If you go to Goldman Sachs, they're going to first of all say, okay, what's your credit rating? So you got to go back and talk to S&P. They got to give you a rating. You're a small business. The rating's not going to be great, right? Then you go back to Goldman Sachs. They'll say, well, I don't think we can place your bond, so we can't help you. So you're not going to be able to do it, right? Right. So you're left more with the more traditional borrowing avenues, right? You can borrow from a bank, right? You can maybe go to a VC, a venture capitalist, and borrow, but they usually want some kind of ownership stake. So yeah. So publicly traded bonds are mostly for more established, larger companies where there's a market for what they're issuing. Right? And we'll look at another bond after this one, but this is a large company, right? Apple. So you look at, they got all these different bonds. Let me pull this up. All right, so you look at the coupons, 1% coupon. It matures May of this year, right? So basically, wow, that's a low coupon, right? That's lower than the Treasury, but it matures just in a few months, and it's still a little bit of a discount. So you're going to make, you see the yield? You'll make 1.73%. Not huge. And you see more, some have different yields. That's more of the pricing, right? These bonds, they're going to report the last price. There might be other terms in there. Some are callable. So a callable bond is companies will issue a callable bond. It gives them the right, the option to buy the bond back from you at any time. Well, it's usually after a certain date. There's usually a call date and then, after that date. Right? And they can buy it back and there's nothing you can do about it.
Are all the maturity values $1,000?
Yes.
You can buy it with $100 and get $1,000 in the maturity.
Okay, that's a good question. Yes. That's puzzling. But remember what I told you? Bond traders are a pure breed of human being, right? They do not dirty themselves with dollars.
That's
right?
a percent.
They're not going to talk dollars. It's all percent, right? This is, okay, this one sells for $1,000, 100% even. 99.7, that sells for $997.97. Those are percentages. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
What other types of bonds are there? It says corporate.
Yeah, okay, so you got municipal bonds, right, issued by state and local agencies. You got treasuries, U.S. government. You got other countries issuing bonds. You have government agencies issuing bonds. You have mortgage-backed securities, which are private industry that are, merging mortgages together to sell. They also have, there's a market for student loans that are, packaged together, car loans that are packaged together. So there's different markets. Some of those aren't publicly traded or actively traded, but there's different sort of
And they
issues.
all be listed differently.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of avenues. All right, so let's look at one of these. Let's look at, I want to look at non-callable. See, because if you have a callable bond, if the company can call it, which means they can buy it back and you don't have to say, they got to give you something for that, right? So the yield might be a little bit higher because you might lose it early, right? So let's look at a non-callable, but I want one, okay, here's one. I want one that's a later.
How come they don't give you the yield for non-callable?
What's that?
How come they don't list the yield?
If it's not callable? I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll have to calculate it ourselves. We're not going to take that.
You know what it means? Some are yes, some are no, and some are just blank.
Yeah, the blank, that might not be a no. There might be something else in there. Let's see. And all these are so short term.
There's really only that one.
There's only two that I don't know.
47.
Yeah. Okay.
2021.
Yeah, these are all. Here's one that's still callable, but we'll do that calculation stuff. Long term, so it should be okay. Okay, so here's an Apple bond. It is, coupon is 3.75%, so 3.75%. There's the last trade, and there's the last trade yield, right? But it's callable, so we're not, quite sure if that last yield is adjusted for that or not. So let's figure out our yield to maturity, assuming it's not callable, right? Assuming you're going to hold it to maturity, and well, this, let's see, it's 2047, so that's what, 29 years in a couple months. We'll make it a flat 29 years. Semi-annual. These are all semi-annual, very standardized. So tell me the yield to maturity of this Apple bond at a, assuming 29 years even.
How do you know this is semi-annual? Did it say, or-
Yeah, it will say. I'll show you that in a minute. Yeah, let's look at the contract. Yeah, they're all semi-annual, but yeah, they'll be in there somewhere. You can find it. They got all kinds of information on these. Bless you. Yeah, so what I want you to calculate is the yield to maturity. Right?
You said we're rounding head to what?
29. Actually, FINRA just changed their page from last time I found bonds to today. So from in the last 4 or 5 months, they've changed their page. All right, so let's put in our contract. What's my end? 58. So 29 times 2, 58. What is my payment? So 37.50 divided by 2. How much is that? $18.75. So you buy this bond, every 6 months you're gonna get $18.75. You hold it to maturity, you'll get $1,000. How much does it cost today?
$989.40.
Did I? I've got that. Is the screen in the way down? What is
Because you
that?
just looked at the
What's
last
our
rate.
price?
There it is, last trading price, 98.94.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, 98.94. Okay, so how much is it?
Well, they have a dollar sign there, but it's really a percent, right?
Yes. Yeah, they're fooling you. Yeah, yeah. They
$989.
would report in the Wall Street Journal that way too. $989.40, right? So we solve for our yield to maturity. Would we get
1.9054.
and that you got multiplied by 2, right? Or is that already multiplied by 2?
Nope.
Times 2.
Times the 3.8107. %. Which is remarkably like that out there.
Yes. So they're ignoring that call provision. They're just doing the calculation like we did.
You see the next call date, guys, 3/12/2047. So it's not
Six.
like 6 months.
6 months before it matures.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. All right, so you look at this bond, and that's what we have. You look at the price bouncing around. Let's look at this trading history. Read to whatever, I don't remember. Isn't that how you go through things? Okay, so you look at the trading activity today, the 19th, right? We've had 2 lots traded. Oh no, actually the same side, right? So you got the buy side and the sell side. So we had 8,000 bonds traded, you know, today, one transaction today. Right? Yesterday, the 18th, we got 3 trades. They just have the sells there. So you see, it's not super actively traded bond, right? But there's trades every day. So there's a market for it. If you looked at, you know, some issuers like General Electric has all kinds of bonds out there. They have many more bonds than Apple, and they're traded much more actively. Look at treasuries, billions of dollars of treasuries traded every day. So they're trading quite actively. But if you look at other companies, they're not as active. Right? So go back. And okay, and you see they they give you information, right? They tell you offering date. So May or September 5th was offered, then the dated date, that's when it came out. First coupon has not been paid yet, right? So you give you the kind of the terms of this deal. Offering, it's not $1 million, it's $1 million times 1,000, right? Put it into units, $1 billion bond. So it gives you different sort of issues, tells you the ratings. Yeah, it's not. The bankruptcy protection, Apple's a viable company. It gives you these kind of terms. Price at offering. This one's offered when it was sold originally, sold for $994.30. Then there's the yield at offering. So as we know, interest rates have risen a little bit, and even for Apple, they've risen a little bit. So now it's what, 3.81. Is there anything else you wanted to see on this thing? All right, so if you look at, go back to our bonds, right? Let's look at another bond. Let's look at a.
So, questions.
Yeah.
So any energy got bought by Berkshire Hathaway.
Right.
I think we still buy bonds.
You still issue bonds?
I think so. Just for our company. I don't think because Hathaway took us over that we.
Yeah.
The name helps, but our stock isn't traded.
Okay,
You know
so
what I mean? We don't have our own individual stock anymore. We're part of the Berkshire Hathaway.
right. So your bond is still, you know, stepping down an obligation of Berkshire Hathaway, right? Because they own you. I don't know what form they own you in, but it's still, you know, you're borrowing money is, you know, Nevada Energy, because you're a freestanding unit, but you're part of that corporate umbrella, right? So that would help, probably help your borrowing costs. It depends on what structure. Assumably.
Yeah.
If you look at a smaller company, okay, Las Vegas Sands, isn't that? Let's look at MGM. Is that your ticker? Yeah, there it is. Okay, so look at, you know, MGM. You know, there are some old circus bonds out there. They bought out Circus. There's an old Mandalay Bay bond out there.
I know it's old just because of the name.
Just because of the name, yeah. So, yeah, because they would not issue bonds under the Circus name. Even if the project was for Circus and the money, they wouldn't do that. So they're a little bit different structure than you guys. But if you look at the Circus bond, so this one's maturing 2036, right? And 7% coupon. You get the price $972.20. The price looks like it bounces around a little bit. Look at the trading history. The last year it hasn't traded at all. With VB minus. Is it VB minus? Let's see, where's our rate? Previous page.
Just go down.
There it should be somewhere.
Right below the graph.
Oh, there you
Oh yeah, they're BB minus, right? So yeah, so technically, yeah, it just falls out of that double B rated range, right? Let's look at some of the other. People aren't buying it.
Doesn't show any outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it's a work or.
Yeah, they might, yeah, people are not trading that for whatever reason. But it's still out there, but it's still listed, right? Let's look at another, which is 2026. Here's another MGM bond. The price, $1,017.50. Coupon. There's a lot of other, it looks like there's trading activity on this thing. So there is trading activity here. Not, hasn't traded today, but it traded a bunch yesterday. Right? So it still hasn't traded yet today. So somehow people are not inspired to trade this bond today.
Even this one was a BB minus, wasn't it?
This one is this one. Yeah, BB minus. So in that, so Standard & Poor's updated their rating. This is in 2016. Moody's is more recent, so now it's a BA3. BA3, I think, is slightly better. Yeah, so this is a BB, right?
Oh.
Yeah. And then trace grade, we don't have it, so high yield, so that would still call it junk. So it's right on the border of junk and non-junk.
So why would somebody trade this then if it's a, BB, because it's got high yield? But
The high
it's
yield,
got a
right?
non-rate?
You're being compensated for it, right? So to motivate you to trade this, we saw with Apple, we got 3.81%. If you're willing to drop down in risk, you got to make that decision, right? Okay, MGM, the possibility of default is higher. You live in town, do you think MGM's going to go bankrupt in the next 10, 20 years? You wouldn't think so.
20 years? That's a way down.
Yeah, or how long are you going to, okay, we got to hold this bond until 2026. So you think it's
10 years.
Yeah.
Probably good.
You think it's going to make
Sounds
it?
picking up.
Yeah, you think it's going to make it. So you're willing to get an extra 0.5% taking that risk. That's what people are saying.
But you can still sell it at any time.
You can still sell it as long as there's a market, right?
As long as there's a buyer, yeah.
Traded a lot
There's no trading
yesterday.
happening on it, so
That circus bond, if you got one of those,
you'd never be able to
it'd
sell
be
it.
hard to sell. Or you could sell it for a low enough price, right?
So how do you sell these? You put it out there and you have to wait for someone to.
You, just like you buy stock, right? You log into your broker, individual, you log into your brokerage account and
But that happens typically
look at the price.
almost instantaneously, right? You're saying this, you could wait a day or two before something.
You could, right? So what happens in stock, you typically do an order called market order, right? So you put it in there and you got the bid-ask spread and you're going to sell, whatever somebody's willing to buy it, right? We'll talk about it when we do stocks. Bonds, you have the same sort of thing, but the spread might be huge, very wide, because it's not very actively traded, some of these bonds. So you might have this bond, you say, okay, right now the market says it's worth 101.75, so $1,017.50. If you want to sell it today, maybe you can only get $1,000 for it. Right? You might not be able to get the full price. So if you put in there as a market order, people are willing to buy it, but only they can get a really good bargain on it if it's not really actively traded. So if you sell it, you might take a hit.
The negotiable, I go in there and say, I want to buy this for $1,000.
Sure, you can put a limit order in there. Call that a limit order.
And somebody makes the decision that yes, okay,
Right.
go ahead and sell.
Right. And but bonds, people don't play that game so much because they're not as actively traded, especially the ones that are not traded that much, right? But if you see a stock that's not actively traded, you might log in your account every day, put in a limit order to buy at a real cheap price, and maybe sometime it will hit, especially in the aftermarket. It could hit. But you might be frustrated. You might do it 300 days in a row before you get something.
So how does that work for bonds that are in I don't want to call them mutual funds, but they're grouped things, like on the Vanguard they have, it's not a
Right.
bond, it's Wellington Fund or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's
So
grouped.
most funds, whether it's a mutual fund, a hedge fund, or an insurance company, they'll have big stakes of bonds, right? The big positions of bonds. They won't normally go through, the exchanges to buy and sell. They'll place them somewhere, right? So you might have Vanguard wants to get rid of their position in Apple bonds, so they have $300 million worth of Apple bonds, right? They'll call one of the investment banking houses and say, we got $300 million of these Apple bonds to sell. They'll contact the people they know and place it. Right? They'll charge a commission based on placing that and negotiate price. Because you can imagine, if you have all these bonds to sell in one time in the marketplace, you're flooding the market.
I think some of them are like segmented too, right? So they have like 30%
Right.
international, they got 30%
Right.
domestic, and they got, some.
Yeah, so they might have to.
Small cap.
They might have to do reallocation and change positions for that reason. Yeah, so a lot of bond trades you don't see in the trading history because they're kind of displaced, right? So a lot of these trades, this is a big trade. There's still some bigger trades here, but they're not as big as the underlying market, right? So sometimes if if that investment banker you're going through to sell your offer, right? If you want to sell some bonds in the public marketplace, they might do it through the public if they find a better price. But oftentimes they're placed. All right, questions? All right, so that's kind of the world of bonds. Let's see, we have our next place. Let me get the next place up here. I drew you the picture already. We still have our picture.
What do you think of his name?
Hi, Nate. Where are we going? Okay, this is the hint. This is in Europe. Man, my picture is remarkable.
I'm guessing Austria.
What is it?
Austria?
You're close, but no, that's not Austria.
Albania.
No, it's not Albania.
Hungary?
Hungary.
Drawing the name.
Right. So Budapest and then Croatia. Zagreb. Right. Now, I've been to, well, I guess I should say all three places. I've been to Buda, I've been to Pest, and I've been to Zagreb. Right? Buda and Pest are two different cities. Right? Has anybody been to Buda or Pest? Okay, so you've been to both? Okay, you've been to both? Oh, no, that's okay. Oh, you've never been out of the country? So, Buda, I think we'd end up staying in Buda, across the river from Pest, right? Dalmatian coast, maybe that's right here. Maybe the extension would be there, but that hasn't been decided yet. So you get the orientation of where you are. The people refer to this as Eastern Europe. It's really Central Europe, kind of South Central Europe. This last summer, we did our family vacation. Flew into Dubrovnik, went into Montenegro, Qatar, and then, of course, I had to drive. I think we took a boat to split, then I had to drive around. And it was pretty interesting. We ended up taking a boat over to Venice, which is kind of cool, from Rovin. Went from Rovin to Venice, and then a storm hit, so we couldn't take the boat back. So we had to take a bus back around the coast.
What did you draw? I'm just curious which country you drew.
Yeah.
This is Hungary.
We're talking about.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Hungary.
You're right.
It is a remarkable similarity.
Well, I mean, we really picky, maybe.
Yes.
Quite the same. Yeah, that's a cool part of the world. The interesting there thing is they got these Christmas markets that are people will be there for Christmas market time,
Oh.
and they have the great dessert at these Christmas market called a turd loaf. Doesn't sound very attractive.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
You're not helping us there,
All right, so go ahead and take your break. We'll go to 11:35.
Have anybody been to either of those two places?
Nope.
No, nobody?
Haven't been to any of them.
Okay, so you've been to Budapest? Yeah. So, but you said quite a while ago?
Yeah, my mom's from there.
Oh, really? Cool.
I was there when I think the last time I was 12, so I was young, but
That doesn't
Yeah.
count.
yeah, it was pretty young.
Yeah, I did a, with cohort 14, I guess it was. My wife likes Europe, so she ended up coming for the extension, which was in Vienna. And then we took a side trip to Budapest. And I was teasing one of the cohort members there. They had these big steam baths, right? These natural springs. And so you go to this place, famous place where there's like 1,000 people in this pool, this hot water, right? That's bubbling out of the ground. Right? It's really kind of cool, right? So I tell her the story how I'm convinced that, because I always think you have to be nude, right, to go into these steam baths, right? So I tell this story how it was kind of embarrassing because I get out there in the steam bath naked and everybody's coming out with their babies. And she's with her parents, right? So she's in Budapest because she's from there, or I guess her parents. And so she's telling her parents that, so then I come and meet them, where she's telling her parents, and they're all like looking at me like that. But it wasn't true, I was wearing my babies. All right, we'll see you back in a few minutes.
Also some good writing. Cold.
Huh?
Is it also some good writing? Cold.
Yeah, it would be cold there. Why would Jared do it anyway?
Okay, maybe I was. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Remind me of your Instagram.
Okay, I know Bob, okay. Write him. And tell him, no, he would be interested in help. Yeah. And the going price per mistake is $5. So that's 1, 2, 3, that's $15. Tell him that I always paid you the $15. So you want to get it back so you can refund it.
It would make it more credible if you actually did.
Yeah. I was just reading the episode.
Yeah.
Okay, no, yeah, you're right. I was looking down at the bottom part.
Yeah, well, that's how I verified. I was like, okay, that looks.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I think I was looking at it. I might be looking on my phone.
Maybe.
Until I didn't, right? I didn't see
And it was a weird picture. I was like, here.
because it was kind of.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
I never found the problem in textbook.
That's good.
That was like a easy one.
I've never been to Ireland. I've been to Ireland. And those are, I know, well, I like.
Okay, so I got a question.
Yes.
Areas, the different cities, never been taken, so that's the point.
Right.
So the thing that would maybe one way to another is.
Right.
42 degrees of Budapest. One of the things we do, I'm making. Motorcycle is to be lower at these places. Yeah, it's like Peru, we got there, I think, all this mountainous areas.
Right.
We don't like this, going up the mountain. These exist during the 10 days. And obviously, this doesn't include the extension, which would be a different location. What else is it, 100% those 10 days, 48 total rent. And then versus.
There won't be a lot, I'll tell you, you probably have maybe a couple half-day, periods in there, right? My thought is probably European locations would be most conducive to that, right? So when I've been to 3 or 4 of these places, I see motorcycle people all over. And so it seems to be really well established, the roads are good, people understand motorcycles, right? In Asia, there's a lot of mopeds. And people seem to die quite regularly, whipping around those things. So it seems a little risky.
Don't lose you, Bob.
Panama might be more similar to that. So I think a reasonable.
Well, Greg's got a philosophy that we go wherever Sylvester
But
wants.
there are some Sylvester have to have.
Right,
Yes,
but,
I would-
Well, it
well,
sucks.
I'm not sure, I don't know the schedule.
Yeah, right.
Traditionally, when I see.
I agree.
You've been on
I think
these trips.
my philosophy is wherever Greg wants.
So.
Yeah.
Jerry wants to go wherever Sylvester wants.
My guess would be maybe on Sunday after lunch, you could do it, right? And then maybe, maybe depends on how the plane transactions, maybe, during that travel day, half a day.
No, that would be good. I would love that.
Yeah, that's what I see. That'd be pretty cool.
No, rent a bike.
Yeah, I've never drove a motorcycle, but I was in Thailand. We went to Phuket, and I was with this Swiss guy, and we ended up renting these mopeds. And he had to kind of like tell me how to start it up and stuff, because we told the people we knew how to drive, and I had no idea.
They're different than motorcycles.
Okay, he had to tell me how to shift, and I didn't even remember how to
Did
do
you
brake.
shift on a
I didn't
moped?
know how to do anything. So we're driving around all day, and I'm learning how to drive it as we go.
I feel like we have to be really scared to drive it. Because the traffic is crazy.
Yeah, I think,
Thailand.
yeah, I would say Phuket wasn't so bad, because it was out in a small island in the southern tip, right? But we wanted to go see there's a monkey rehab center. Because there were monkeys, as babies, they're captured by the locals. Given cigarettes and alcohol.
I'm trying to pick based on.
To kind of show tourists.
Well.
And then they get too old and start getting violent. They just let them go. So there's a rehab center for the Vietnamese middle-aged monkeys that were alcohol.
I'd like to know what opportunities are so.
You ever do that?
Yeah, on the bike and go right.
Where in Croatia? I didn't catch the,
Oh, Zagreb.
what is
That would
it?
be my.
Zagreb. So Z-A-G-R-E-B.
Make that choice.
R-E-B?
R-E-B. Z-A-G-R-E-B.
Around the mountains.
So what would you look? You look to see that like a big Harley.
It doesn't have to be Harley, because but
They might put something together.
but flat terrain.
Right.
Getting up in the Yeah, I was looking at this.
You would take a bike across.
If you want to go from the very southern tip, and there's people that do this, is very southern tip of South America, all the way up north, there's a gap. There is a gap. There are no roads, so you gotta ship your bike around or fly it or something like that. But there is a gap in Panama, there are no roads.
Really?
Period.
I was gonna say, that would be something to check here. I've gone from south or south to central, and I'm like, how cool is that? But you can't do it, is that what you're telling me?
Well, you know, you can't. I think literally it's called Darius Gap, D-I-A. Whatever it is, it's like 60 miles where there are no roads. So you gotta ship your bike around the boat or something like that. Yeah, that's our
I was supposed to go with my grandma once.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I was supposed to go with my grandma once. And she was information about where she was going.
Wilma, did you see your cake?
So far, and so. Yeah.
I know, right?
And I did it just right now.
Yeah.
With Serbia and all that. Remember we said that? There was someone that
All right, here's a practice problem for you. Before we move away from bonds. So here's a FINRA quote, 89.462. It's a bond that pays a 7% coupon, semi-annual, 18 years to maturity. So 4 questions for it. What's the yield to maturity of this bond? What's the coupon yield? What's the capital gain or loss? And then I added another question. I said, what if the market rate of interest is 9% 1 year from now, 1 year later? What is your realized return? So you can think in terms of if you sold the bond in 1 year, the market rate of interest is 9%. What would your actual return be? Right? What would be your percentage gain or loss on it? So you guys figured out who's going to champion which places? You guys haven't decided?
Not yet.
My problem is if you guys pick one of the European locations, it costs you extra money. My
Because
wife
you're
came
running
over
this.
for the extension. I told you my problem with my wife, right?
She wants to marry
You want to marry European?
Yes.
You're European, you just have a different accent.
You know, I spoke with an accent when I first met her. A cooler. I couldn't keep it off. So.
I was gonna say, you still got like a New York accent.
Okay.
bond yield is the annual.
Yes.
Carissa just made me do manual labor.
Oh, no.
Put the new water.
Oh.
All right, Bob, you're a big motorcycle guy. So I was in the Philippines, people would use mopeds as taxis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some guy would drive it and then they would load people on. So the question is, how many people could fit on a moped taxi? So how many do you think? You know what the answer is? One more. No, it's unbelievable how many people you see sometimes on these things.
One more.
They take it to the extreme. There's no doubt about that.
And then you saw that in Thailand, right?
All the time.
It's unbelievable.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But during summertime, they have, in one town, they have a board that says, please drive safe, and it has the death toll.
Oh,
And
wow.
every day it's just another one, another one, another one.
Oh, my gosh.
Because everyone's drunk, partying.
Right.
Night on motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets up in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was there for song project. Really, it wasn't dry for like weeks.
Everyone likes to go there for that party.
Oh, I didn't like it. I was cold the
Where
whole
were
week.
you at?
I was down in Phuket, I think.
I remember when you toured our place in that big structure out there.
Yeah.
This is what it's gonna look like. There's an
Yeah.
artist
Oh,
rendering.
my gosh.
So that big string right there,
Yeah.
and then those little things, and then the things are laying down on the side that we're gonna do. This is what they're going to look like. It's an artist rendering.
Where's that?
That's down in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. Just take a trip. You can see it.
It's that house we're building.
Nice. Oh, that's
Again,
built some of the door.
An artist rendering again.
Mm-hmm. She said she was helped build some of the door.
Uh-huh.
There's the merry-go-round or the Ferris wheel.
The Ferris wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It was laying down on its side when you came, but now it's
Yeah, well, I don't even know if it was, if I saw it, all we saw was the stand.
Mm-hmm. So there's the dogs you saw.
Mm-hmm.
Hell's Kitchen we just finished.
That here?
It's right in front of Caesars.
Okay. Oh, really?
So on the other side of this Las Vegas Flamingos right here.
We both was go after class. So we hit the bar.
Uh-huh.
Dry on January, but after that.
You think not the game last week.
Over that first year. Yes.
So is the time of number 3, is that the you calculate or is it the original price?
Okay, for number 3 here?
Yeah.
There's 2 ways you can get this, right? You can calculate the new value, right? The new present value. Figure out the percentage change from the old value to the new one.
So the new one, we use the new rate or the
The new price. No, you use the yield to maturity.
Yield maturity.
Right, right. Or you could just back into it. You could, if you want to, you could say, hey, I know this. Yield to maturity equals coupon yield plus or minus a percentage change in bond value, which is our capital gain or loss. If you know this and know this, you can just back into that.
Cheater.
So essentially. This is just.
Oh, wait, it's just, I got this right.
So basically.
I'm right.
To the present value, which is not. Just solve for. Did you for the semi?
You guys ready to look at this?
Mhm.
All right, so yield to maturity, right? So I drew this timeline up here to kind of represent what we have with 36 6-month periods, right? 18 years, 36 periods. So let's put in our contract for 36 periods. What's my payment? 70 divided by 2, right? 35 and 1,000. Everybody have that for the contract?
Yeah.
All right. You gotta fix it, you know. So there's the contract. I'm solving for yield to maturity, which is the I, right? So I gotta put in the present value. I told you the FINRA quote, 89.462. So you convert that to dollars, right? 89.462% times 1,000. $894.62. You solve for your I, what do you get?
8.12.
That's already doubled, right? So 8.24%, so you're gonna have 4.12 times 2, right? That's 8.12. Sorry, 8.12. 8.1.
Throw one in there.
8.12%. Right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So if you buy this contract and hold it to maturity, your yield to maturity, 8.12%. So you're making per year. Right? Now the first year, that coupon yield, any questions on that? You're okay. The coupon yield just asks, what is your return for the coupon over the first year? Over the first year, we're getting 2 coupon payments, right? So we're getting $70. We paid $894.62. On a percentage basis, what is that?
7.82.
7.82?
Mhm.
7.82%,
That one.
right? Make sense?
It does.
Now, the capital gain or loss, well, we know this relationship. Your total yield, your total return is made up of 2 things. It's the coupon and whatever the capital gain or loss might be, right? So the yield to maturity, 8.12%. From the coupon, we're getting 7.82%. So to make this equal, we're going to have a positive, right? And you know it's positive because if you hold it to maturity, it's going to increase in value as it approaches maturity. That first year, you've got to get 0.3%, make it equal. Right? You could have done it the long way if you wanted to, and you could have figured out the price right here. Right? Want me to do that?
That's a good idea.
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So now we're going to figure out the price right there. All right, so we're going to figure out the price. We got the same contract, except now we've gone through 1 year. Now we have 17 years left. So the remaining 17 years for 34 6-month periods. Payment's still the same, future value is still the same. We'll use our yield to maturity, right? So 4.06, I guess we probably have some rounding in there, right? And figure out the present value. What's the present value?
897.38.
897.72, right? So the question now is, on a percentage basis, did we make or lose money, right? Well, we made money, right? It went up in price. How much did it go up in price? $2.10, right? No, $3.10. $3.10, right? So we made $3.10, right? Well, we originally paid $894.62. So on a percentage basis, what is that? 0.35%. Again, we have a little bit of rounding, right? So that's what's going on at interest time. Yes.
So when we're doing the present value at the year 1 period, we're assuming that our yield is our market rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which like generally isn't the case.
Well, if you're trying to figure out your expected, this is really expected capital gain or loss, your expectation would be that market rates won't change.
So if I said, this is what I'm saying is, I feel like rates are going to increase by 1%. Would I like add 1 to my yield?
That's our next question, right? Yeah. So that's what happened there. So what happened is, oh, sorry. I got really excited, yeah.
How did you get the 30, that 0.30%? Is that follow up
Oh.
at that point?
Okay, because I have this, I have 8.12% equals 7.82% plus X. What is X? I minus 7.82 from each side, 0.30% equals X. That's all I'm doing now. You're welcome. All right. Can I move on? You guys ready? Okay, so now we have a different scenario. Market rate of interest has changed, right? So 1 year later, again, we have 17 years left of 34 6-month periods. We know our contract, 35 every 6 months and 1,000 at the end. But now our market rate of interest has changed. Our market rate of interest is 9%. That's a per year, so we got to divide it by 2, 4.5% every 6 months, right? So now we can figure out how much our bond is going to be worth 1 year from now. So how much is our bond? $827.
When you say 1 year later, is it 1 year later from the year we already moved, or is it 1 year?
1 year later from the beginning. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, 53 cents. All right. So now I want to know that realized rate of return. Realized, all that means is if you sold it after a year, when these interest rates did change, what would you actually realize? What would you actually earn, right? So your realized rate of return is really going to equal your coupon yield plus or minus your, again, your percentage change in bond value, but now the actual change, right, with this change of interest rate. We already know our coupon yield was 7.82%, right? So we earned $70 on our original investment. But now we've lost money, right? So to figure out our percentage change in the bond value, it is what our asset or our bond is worth right now compared to where we bought it, divided by our basis where we bought it, right? So now, we've lost money, right? How much money did we lose? $67.09, right? On a percentage basis, how much is that?
7.5.
7.5?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have a loss. A capital loss, this 1 year, right, of 7.5%. So now our realized gain is a lot smaller. We made 7.82% of the coupon, but we lost money on the principal. So overall, we made not much, right? 0.32%. If you're a bond trader, say 32 basis points. Right? 1 basis point is 1/100%. Again, they don't want to talk in normal language.
So $8, you just take the 67, add on the 70 that you got in payments. That's you made $2.91.
$2.90, and then if you took the $2.91 divided by this, you'll get that same answer. Yeah, yeah.
So I think your 827 is not year 2 though.
This 827 here? Okay, yeah, so, okay, this is not year 2, this is 6-month period, right? So here is year 1.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I was a little, yeah, that's a little, yeah, that's what I meant. All right. You guys see that? You now are expert bond traders, right? Practice the language, you get the language down, and you have it made. All right, so what I'll do next is I'm going to introduce common stock. Yeah. So tomorrow what we'll do is we'll look at now value common stock. Common stock is not a contract. So let's talk a little bit about what common stock is. And then I'll show you the evaluation formula, but then we'll talk about it in detail tomorrow. So what is common stock? Well, you know what common stock is. You're getting ownership. You're buying a piece of the company, right? And what do you get for that ownership? Let's work from the bottom up. I'll give you the features of the common stock. First of all, there's no maturity, right? So we buy common stock, as long as that company's in existence, you have the common stock. Right? Sometimes when we get bought out, and then you get common stock of a new company. You get voting rights. We talked a little bit about voting rights a couple of weeks ago. Remember I gave that example with the Mirage and how that kind of didn't work out so well. It's typical, right? If you could, you have a small shareholder, you have votes, there's really no value to that, right? You can't influence policy. You can't vote in people you want on the board of directors. So unless you have a significant piece, there's no value to voting rights, right? What else do you get? Residual claim on assets. Well, the stratosphere is a good example of that, right? They build that big tower, right? And guess what? They didn't have that many hotel rooms at first, so they didn't get enough people riding up the big tower. Their original model was that it was a huge number, 30 or 40% of everybody who landed in McCarran Airport were going to go to the stratosphere and ride up to the top of the tower, paying their money, right? And it didn't work, right? It wasn't actual. So they didn't have the revenue coming in, so they couldn't pay their debt. They cry to the bankruptcy judge, bankruptcy protection, and then they decide to reorganize, and the old stockholders lose everything. And if you had stock in the old company, you now have wallpaper. You don't have anything of value, right? So this idea of residual claim on assets is that, well, if you're an owner of the company, right, and they have all these assets, property, plant, equipment, and so forth, if you sold those and paid back all your debt, whatever's left over goes to the stockholders, the owners, residual claim on those assets, right? But if you ever get to a point where a company is really liquidating, almost always it's because they're forced to liquidate. And there's no value left, your stock is worthless. So in most every case, this residual claim on assets is not worth anything, right? So why are you buying common stock? That's the reason, right? Residual claim on income. And that's just your income statement, right? You have revenues, you pay your expenses, you pay your interest, you pay your taxes, whatever's left over, that net income belongs to stockholders, right? If you divide that by shares outstanding, right, then you get your earnings per share, right? And that's what companies report. So every quarter you hear companies report, okay, what are the earnings, right? Here are the expected earnings. Did you meet or beat those expectations? Those are the earnings per share. right? So that's, basically you're looking at it as a company. Now, there are some caveats to that. You might want to look at cash flows instead of earnings, but it's somewhat similar. Yes?
One thing I never understood is how do they know how many shares they can put out there?
Oh, they could put as many shares out there as they want, right? So if you think about it, let's look at this one. So let's say you have a corporation. Apple. And I don't know what Apple's worth off the top of my head, but in the billions, right? Let's say this is a nice round number, 100 billion, right? And so you've got this corporation and the market is worth this, right? What's the stock price? Well, it just depends on how many pieces they cut that pie into, right? You got some companies that cut into really fine pieces and the price per share is not very high, right? Some companies like Berkshire Hathaway. Somebody Google that. What's Berkshire A shares? What are those worth now? BRK.A, probably. $319,000 for one share, right? For Berkshire Hathaway, right? So, Warren Buffett's the CEO of that company. So that's just, he doesn't cut his corporate pie in a lot of pieces, but other people say, okay, we're going to cut into more pieces, right? And then each share is worth less, right? So what is the total value of a company, market value? You took the share price times shares outstanding, you get the value, right? And let's look at
Apple was worth 900 billion on Wednesday.
900 billion. Oh, geez. All right, let's look at Apple. Okay, so if you look at all right, so we look at Apple there, $178.35, and there's your market cap, 907.43 billion. So you get that by shares outstanding, which they're not giving you here. I had somewhere in their information. If you look at, do they have it under statistics? Okay, shares outstanding, 5.09 billion shares. You multiply that times $178 per share, that's your total market cap, your total corporate pie. Now, so Apple can decide to do a 2-for-1 stock split, right? Companies do that all the time. If they do a 2-for-1 stock split, all of a sudden they'll have twice as many shares outstanding. They'll go from 5.09 billion shares to 10 billion shares. And the stock price will be cut in half. But the company's still worth the same amount.
And their last split was 7-1.
Okay, exactly. That split was 7-1. So their shares were worth almost $700 when they just split.
Yeah, I was like, it's 300.
Yeah.
Close to 700.
Yeah, close to $700. So they did a split to bring it back into a certain trading range. Some companies like to do splits to bring their stock price into a trading range. Apple probably think, well, our typical investor is this kind of this nerdy character who can afford, 100, a certain price per share, and we'll do that, right? in realities, it doesn't matter so much anymore because commissions are so low. You know, you could buy 3 shares of Apple, who cares? Commission.
So there's 5 billion shares outstanding, and that based on what the company's worth, that's how they determine how many shares they have?
Or the company decides how many shares to issue.
There's no like formula that they can say.
No, so what happens is when a company incorporates, they have a corporate charter, and state by state, right? So in the corporate charter, they'll say, we can issue up to this many shares, and they probably won't issue all those, they'll issue a number of shares. So they decide how many shares. And someone will decide, okay, you know, we want to raise, you know, when they first incorporate, we want to raise $1 billion. So if we issue, you know, 100 million shares, will come out at $10 a share. Will be the stock price. Right? And then, of course, the price will go up over time if they're successful. They might issue more shares, right, to raise more money. So then things kind of move from there. So as companies get older, you know, the amount of shares issued will probably keep going up. And if they're successful, the price keeps going up. They might do splits. If they're having trouble, the stock price goes down too low, they might do a reverse split. And then you have, you know, they do a 1-for-2 reverse split. You end up with half as many shares, the price is double. So a lot of companies that are having financial trouble, you don't want to become a penny stock. A penny stock, by definition, sells for $5 or less per share. So if you're having real trouble and your stock gets down to $3 a share, people in the marketplace look and go, what a lousy company. You might do a 1-for-10 reverse split. So now somebody who had 100 shares has 10 shares, but they're now worth 10 times as much.
So all companies don't, that's when they go public, right? That's when they're trying to raise money and then get out shares. So
Right.
some companies don't do it all.
Some companies stay private, yeah. And I'll run through an IPO transaction, a public offering, and show you how that works. So we'll do that tomorrow.
But even a private company has stock that's worth something.
Yes. So a private company has a stock that's worth something, but it's not publicly traded, so you don't know exactly what it's worth. And they kind of, how do you convince, if you want to sell your stock in a private company, how do you convince a buyer what it's worth? Right? So you got some issues there.
Is it worth the par value that they set when they incorporate?
No.
So we're literally doing this as we speak. Our roadshow was last week.
Oh, good.
And like our thought process, not ours, but like the thought process is, so we're owned by Apollo and they own 100% of the equity. And they say, okay, well, we're not going to get out fully, but we want to offer about X amount. So their case is 30%. So we're going to offer 30% of our shares, right? And then we decide what do we want to get for that 30%? And we do that. So we say, okay, we want to get about 170. We want to have our pick notes, which is $170 million.
Okay.
And then we work with the bankers to say, what's our valuation? And a lot industries, I guess, are different, right? Everybody in the gaming industry uses EBITDA multiple.
Right.
To say EBITDA multiple of XYZ companies based on independent research, all this kind of stuff, work with the bankers. And like 99% of IPOs are between $15 and $70, right?
Right.
Like that.
Right.
So say we want to price, the bankers are always like, okay, we're going to price $16. So you do your 170 million divided by your $16, and that's the amount of shares you offer for 30%.
Yeah. And what we'll do, we'll talk about IPOs and remind me, we'll come back to this. You know, why do they use this multiple, right?
Yeah.
And how does that work? I'll show you what they're doing when they do that multiple, okay? Because that's a trick. So yeah, so you come out with an IPO, you say, okay, we got a company, right, that generates these kind of cash flows. Therefore, based on those cash flows, what is it worth? And so they'll value it. And I'll show you how they value it based on those cash flows. So you got a distinct value of that pool of corporate assets, right? So in your case, they're paying off, you know, the venture money. They're liquidating some of their portion to pay back some debt, right? So you say, okay, we have, you know, a company worth this much. If we cut it into this many pieces, we'll sell the stock for, they want to do it in a range, like $16 a share. Therefore, will issue this many shares, raise this much money, some goes to Apollo, some goes to future needs because they're growing, I suspect, right? So really where it starts off is you start off years ago as a company getting money from some outside investor, that's just some venture capitalists. The company's become successful enough where it's now worth more than what they put in. So they're selling out some piece, paying back some debt, so they'll, they won't have any debt out there, so they'll sell free and clear that equity. You guys are growing, and you're probably getting some equity interest as well, and other investors are buying in, so then you're good to go. Now, companies will go out, you're right, I mean, the typical price range is between 15 and 20 or so, right? Facebook, when they went public, was in the 30s. So some companies buy it, so some go below, some go above, but they like to be kind of in this normal range, right? And then because they find, it's easy to buy a round lot. A round lot's 100 shares. It's $1,600. It's not a big deal. But you have the IPOs. Those are really tough to go get into because the average first day return, very first day, one day return is something like 15%. So somebody tells you can invest money for one day and make 15%. Think of how, on an annual basis, that return. That's huge, right? So everybody wants to do that. You and I, well, at least me, I don't know, maybe you guys are really wealthy and have all kinds of assets. For small investors, it's hard to get into IPOs, right? Because everybody wants to share an IPO. I'll show you a way to get into IPOs. There's a little bit. We'll talk about it. But yeah, and a lot of that is, I mean, you hear it in this conversation, it's going to be kind of confusing because you don't know all the background. I'll fill in the blanks as we go forward, and you'll see how right? But yeah. All right, questions?
I have a question on stock split. So when they split the stock or something, well, I was just having to do this actually yesterday. I went through and looked at all the things, everything I bought over because I have the ability to buy stocks and bonds just individually in my 401k. Like, I have no idea what I've done. Like, now I'm taking this class. I'm like, I don't know, I bought some stuff years ago. I don't know what it did. So I downloaded it. And so I was looking at the price, and some things I bought for like, $1.30 a share or whatever. And then I look at the price today, and it's like not even close. And I'm like, something's weird. And so then I looked at it, in some place in there was a stock split.
Right.
I don't understand what happened. And then when I go back to the date that I bought it on in the chart, I paid like $1.30, but it showed like $18.
Yeah.
It's a weird number. And I'm like, okay, how do I reconcile what I bought versus where it is? I don't know if I actually made money or lost money. I don't know.
Yeah. And then you got to start from the very beginning, right? You buy 100 shares, and a year later it does a 2-for-1 split. Now you have 200 shares, right? 3 years later, there's a 3-for-1 split. So you go from 200 to 600 shares, right? So you say, okay, I bought it originally 100 shares at $10 a share, right? Now I have 6 times more shares. So what's your effective buy price? Well, it's 10 divided by the 6, $1.43, right? So then so yeah, yeah, exactly. So I've got my students managing a portfolio of money, and that's one of their jobs is to keep track of all that stuff, right? We have 40, 50 stocks. They have to keep track of stock splits, and dividends or stock dividends, right? And there's different sort of things they got to keep track of.
Yeah, I wasn't tracking the dividends so much, but I was just trying to track like just the ins and outs of stuff I bought, where it's at. Is there a good spreadsheet or somebody that makes a good like pre-made spreadsheet to kind of put in like what you bought, what date, what the price was, and then just kind of track it? Because I was starting to do it, and I'm like, oh, this.
Okay.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't really.
Yeah, because most, if you use Schwab or any kind of online broker, they'll usually have, they'll usually break that out for you. If you have it in a 401k, yeah, I mean, it's not too hard to set up, but you probably have to set up your own Excel.
Right, that's what I'm looking for, some kind of like pre-made
something. Look in your statement in your 401k account, your computer account, and see if there's a place to download into Excel. Because that would be a good starting point, right? Yeah.
transaction type issue.
Yeah. Check that.
Basically comes down to share price and number of shares. So I started with 2 Apple shares for $150 each, like 10 years ago. So I paid $300. Now I have 7. So it's just, and I sold one at like $700.
A lot of times they'll show you.
That's the thing.
Right
But
there.
doesn't that affect your capital gains though, because based on when you bought it versus what it is worth now, difference?
Yeah, but it essentially comes down, if I would have those 2 shares, I would have 14 shares times 178. And you just multiply that out, that's what your gain is.
So if you buy stock, just like a bond, right? Your return comes from 2 sources. Now, it's not a contract, right? But you have a dividend yield. Now, some companies don't pay dividends at all, right? And you also have a change in the stock price, right? So the stock price goes up, you have a capital gain. So really, if you're following your own portfolio, you would say, okay, what am I making on a percentage basis every year? You've got to take both of these into account, right? Now you're talking about, you got this caveat where the number of shares you have, you bought a certain number of shares, and then when stock splits, you now have a different number of shares. So you got to make adjustments to that. But it's, it's really, if you can do your stock return not just year by year, you can go over from the time you bought it till now, right?
Right, so trying to do.
So here, what you're basically doing is, okay, what's your stock return? Well, you want to know, okay, what's your dividend yield over the course of this time, right? So how much have you gotten in dividends total based on your price? So you're going to have a original price or maybe total value, right? It would be price times number of shares. And so you got your dividend amount, the total dividend, so that's your dividend yield over that time. And now you can look, okay, what's the value of the stock right now? And then you figure out your capital gain or loss. So it's really looking at that.
How do you figure out the dividend yield? Is that a calculation, or is that just something published, or you got to look at it every year?
Well, you just look at, okay, you're doing this, right? You start off, you pay, let's say you paid $1,200 total for your position. Right? $1,200 total for your position. You'd say, okay, how much have I received in dividends from the time I bought it until now? Just add up the dollars.
Just add it up.
Add up. So it might be $78, right? You divide that by 1,200, that's your dividend yield.
Okay.
Right? And then you want to say, okay, what's my capital gain or loss? Well, now you look in your account and it's worth $3,200, right? Subtract what you paid for it, divide by what you paid for it, and add those 2 together, that's your total return. So that's what you do. All right, I'm going to stop there, but I'm going to show you one last thing. I'm see what my wife has planned for us this summer. You have no choice. So my wife gets a little more, becomes a little bit more of a risk taker every year. So there's our summer trip, right? So flying to Helsinki, Finland, and then through Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So that's what we end up doing. So she's busy trying to research this and figure this out. We went to Stockholm a couple years ago. That was pretty cool. We would get back from our walking around dinner and walk around. It'd be like 11 at night. The sun wasn't set yet. It's still pretty light. You go to bed and you wake up in the middle of the night. It's like 2 in the morning. You still see outside. And then sun gets up like 5:15 in the morning. Sun's rising. It's like crazy. In the winter, of course, it's the in-person. So if we're going to Helsinki, we're going a little further now.
You driving it all?
Yeah, she's gonna make me drive. She feels that it's tough enough, difficult enough thing that she can challenge me to do it. Yeah. I think the roads are probably pretty good. That's probably not too.
So how many times do you have to change your, the money, whatever?
Oh, they might, I gotta find out they use the euro, right? So they might use the euro. Croatia, they don't use the euro. I think Hungary they did. Did Hungary use the euro? Yeah, I think so, yeah. So, yeah, wherever you guys choose to go, yeah, we'll let you know what to do with the currencies. But there's a currency dealer and Convention Center Drive, I think it's called, near the Strip. Real good place to exchange. So that's a good way to go. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll talk. You're now bond traders, right? Tomorrow I'll make you day traders and stock.
Oh.
That's kind of dangerous. I'm just joking. But I'll get you away from that Bitcoin. That solstice you guys thinking of.
And we get our homework tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
So we're meeting on Tuesday, you're coming?
On Tuesday?
Yeah, are you able?
I'm sure I am. Yeah, because I've literally booked Tuesday through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Mhm. See?
Right.
Every Tuesday I've booked it through.
I have
I wonder if I put a stop date on it.
Are you coming
Tuesday for the.
I did.
study session? I think we started at 5:30, so they started at 5:30.
Every Tuesday up through to the international seminars, I've booked it.
Are those new glasses?
Mhm.
I like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed how they are transitioning, like the
Yeah.
mine to go up silent.
Mhm. I just picked
They're
these
the
up
best.
Tuesday.
Good. No, they're really good. Are they light?
Mhm.